The Appalachian mountains hold secrets that don't want to be found. Across these ancient peaks and forgotten hollows, people have encountered things that shatter everything they thought they knew about reality. What you're about to hear isn't folklore passed down through generations. These are first-hand accounts from people who walked into the woods as skeptics and came out changed forever. 11 stories. 11 people who can't explain what happened to them, but can't forget it either. Some of these witnesses are still missing. Others wish they were. Before we begin, I need you to understand something. These mountains don't care whether you believe or not. They'll show you the truth anyway, and once you've seen it, there's no going back to the person you were before. So dim the lights. Haunted fears, horror family, because tonight we're descending into the heart of Appalachia, where the darkness isn't just absence of light. It's something far older and hungrier than that. Let's begin. I stopped going to church after what I heard in those rocks. My supervisor says I had a breakdown, but breakdowns don't leave handprints on limestone. My name is Daphne, and I've been a land surveyor for 23 years. I've worked in every kind of terrain you can imagine: swamps, deserts, mountains, forests. I'm the woman they send when the job is difficult, when the land is remote and the conditions are rough. I pride myself on being rational, methodical, scientific. I don't believe in ghosts or curses or any of that superstitious nonsense. Or at least, I didn't. Not until Devil's Creek Hollow. The job came in late September of last year. A development company wanted to survey a tract of land in Rowan County, Kentucky, near the old Blackjack mining camp. The area had been abandoned since the 50s, reclaimed by the forest, and they wanted to know if it was suitable for a resort development. The pay was good, and I'd done similar jobs 100 times before. I packed my equipment, drove down from Cincinnati, and set up a base camp near the entrance to the hollow. The first thing I noticed was how quiet it was. I've worked in remote areas before, but this was different. No birdsong, no insect sounds. Just this oppressive silence that seemed to swallow every noise I made. The trees were thick, mostly oak and hickory, with some pine mixed in, and they created a canopy so dense that even at midday, the hollow felt dim and shadowy. Scattered throughout the area were these massive boulders, some as big as cars, some as big as small houses. They were limestone, worn smooth in places, fractured and jagged in others. My geological survey indicated they'd been there for thousands of years, pushed down from higher elevations during ancient landslides. I started my survey work on a Monday morning. I was using a total station to establish control points, working my way systematically through the hollow. The development company wanted detailed topographical data, so I was taking my time, being thorough. By late afternoon, I'd covered about a quarter of the area. I was setting up near one of the larger boulder formations when I heard it for the first time. A scream. Not an animal scream. I know what mountain lions sound like, what bobcats sound like, even what a fox's distress call sounds like. This was human. A man's voice, raw and terrified, screaming for help. It seemed to be coming from inside the boulder. I stood there, my hand frozen on my equipment, listening. The scream came again, muffled but distinct, like someone trapped deep underground. Then it cut off abruptly. I waited for 5 minutes, maybe 10, but heard nothing else. I convinced myself it was an acoustic trick, sound carrying strangely through the hollow from some distant source. Maybe someone had gotten hurt on one of the nearby trails. I made a note to check with the ranger station later, but it happened again the next day. Different boulder, same thing. A man's voice screaming from inside solid rock. This time I recorded it on my phone, played it back to make sure I wasn't imagining things. The recording was clear. Someone was screaming for help, and the sound was definitely coming from inside the boulder. I examined the rock carefully, looking for cracks or fissures that might explain it. Some hidden cavity that could amplify sound from underground. Nothing. The boulder was solid limestone. No openings large enough for a mouse, let alone a person. On the third day, I heard multiple voices. 3, maybe 4 men, all screaming at once, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of terror and pain. I dropped my equipment and ran to the boulder, pressing my ear against the cold stone. The screams were clearer this way, and I could make out words. "Help us. It's coming. Oh God, it's breaking through." Then silence again, so sudden it made my ears ring. I drove into the nearest town that evening, a little place called Moorhead, and started asking questions at the local diner. An old man at the counter, must have been in his 80s, stiffened when I mentioned Devil's Creek Hollow. "You working up there?" he asked, his voice tight. I nodded, explained about the survey work. He shook his head slowly. "That place ain't right. Hasn't been since the disaster." That's when I learned about Blackjack Mine. In 1952, a small independent mining operation had been working a coal seam that ran under Devil's Creek Hollow. They were cutting corners, ignoring safety regulations, pushing deeper than they should have. On November 3rd, at 2:30 in the afternoon, something went wrong. The miners had broken through into something. He wasn't clear on what. Maybe an underground cavern, maybe an old flooded shaft from earlier mining attempts. Whatever it was, there was an explosion. Not a gas explosion like you'd expect in a mine, but something else. The blast collapsed the entire tunnel system. 19 men were working underground that day. Not one of them made it out. The mine company sealed the entrance with explosives rather than attempt a rescue, claiming the tunnels were too unstable. The bodies were never recovered. The families sued, but the company went bankrupt, and no one ever got any compensation. The land was abandoned, left to grow over, and people stopped going there. Those who did go in sometimes reported hearing things: screams, voices, the sound of pickaxes striking stone. I should have left then. Any sensible person would have. But I had a contract, and like I said, I don't believe in ghosts. I convinced myself there was a rational explanation. Maybe old mine shafts were still open somewhere, creating acoustic channels that carried sound in strange ways. Maybe seismic activity was causing the rock to make noise as it settled and shifted. Maybe I was just tired and stressed. I went back to the hollow the next morning. The screams started earlier this time, just after dawn. But now I was listening differently, paying attention to patterns. The voices weren't random. They were repeating the same phrases, the same sequence of screams and pleas, like a recording playing over and over. And they were coming from different boulders, a pattern spreading across the hollow. Whatever was making this sound was moving. I spent the whole day documenting it, mapping which boulders were active and when. By evening, I had a clear pattern. The screaming was progressing from the deepest part of the hollow, where the old mine entrance would have been, toward the surface, toward where I'd set up my base camp. It was moving through the boulders like they were waypoints, getting closer each day. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in my tent with all my lights on, listening. Around 3 in the morning, I heard it clearly for the first time. Not just screams, but other sounds. The chunk, chunk, chunk of pickaxes. The rumble of something heavy moving through stone. And underneath it all, a low grinding noise, like rock being chewed and crushed. I grabbed my strongest flashlight and went outside. The nearest boulder, maybe 30 feet from my tent, was the source of the sound. I walked toward it slowly, every instinct telling me to run the other way. As I got closer, I could see something that made my blood freeze. The surface of the boulder was changing, not quickly, but visibly. The stone was rippling like water, and dark shapes were moving beneath the surface, like shadows trapped under ice. I pressed my hand against the rock. It was warm. Living rock shouldn't be warm. And then I felt it. A hand, pressing back from inside the stone. Fingers spread wide, pushing against my palm through solid limestone. I jerked back, stumbling, my flashlight beam swinging wildly across the boulder's surface. For just a moment, I saw a face pressed against the stone from the inside. Eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Then it sank back into the rock and disappeared. I ran. I don't remember packing my equipment. Don't remember breaking down my camp. But somehow I ended up in my truck with my gear thrown haphazardly in the back. I drove until dawn, didn't stop until I was 3 counties away. I called my supervisor from a gas station and told him I couldn't complete the job. He asked why. I told him there were structural instabilities in the area, that it wasn't safe. He accepted that, though I could hear the skepticism in his voice. But I couldn't leave it alone. I'm a surveyor. I deal in facts, in measurements, in things that can be quantified and explained. So I started researching. I found old newspaper articles about the Blackjack mine disaster, mining company records, geological surveys of the area. And I found something else, older records from the 1800s, when the first settlers came to that hollow. They'd avoided it, called it a cursed place, said the Cherokee who'd lived there before them had sealed off a cave system, and warned that something lived in the deep rock, something that had been there since before humans walked the earth. The Cherokee name for the place translated roughly to where the stone remembers. The settlers thought it was superstition, but they still wouldn't build there, wouldn't farm there. The land sat empty until the mining company came in the 1940s. I think the miners broke through into something they shouldn't have. I think when that tunnel collapsed, when those 19 men died screaming in the dark, the rock absorbed them somehow, recorded them, and whatever was down there, whatever the Cherokee had sealed away, it's been using those recordings to call for more, moving up through the limestone, getting closer to the surface, using the voices of the dead to lure the living. 3 months after I left, the development company sent another surveyor to complete my work. His name was Rebecca. She was young, fresh out of college, eager to prove herself. She set up camp in the same spot I had. After 4 days, the company lost contact with her. Search and rescue teams found her equipment, her tent, everything intact. But she was gone. No sign of struggle, no indication of where she'd gone. Just her phone, sitting on top of the boulder nearest her camp, with a voice recording that played 19 seconds of screaming before cutting to static. The development company abandoned the project. The land was put up for sale, but there are no buyers. Sometimes hikers still go into that hollow, despite the warnings. Most come out fine, say they didn't see or hear anything unusual, but every few years, someone goes in and doesn't come out. The Park Service officially classifies them as missing hikers, lost in the wilderness, victims of exposure, or falls or bear attacks. I know better. I still have the recordings I made on my phone. I've analyzed them with audio software, run them through every filter and frequency analyzer I can find. The screams are real, human voices in genuine distress. But underneath the screams, if you isolate the low frequencies and amplify them, there's something else, a rhythm, a pattern. It sounds almost like breathing, but too slow, too deep. Whatever makes that sound has lungs the size of caverns. I don't go into the mountains anymore. I stick to urban surveys now, shopping malls and housing developments. My supervisor thinks I'm wasting my talents, says I'm too skilled for such simple work. He still thinks I had a breakdown in Devil's Creek Hollow, that I imagined everything. Sometimes I wish he was right. But then I look at my left palm, at the marks that appeared after I touched that boulder. They look like a handprint, fingers pressing hard enough to bruise. They've never faded. The doctors say it's a birthmark they somehow never noticed before, or maybe a skin condition. They're wrong. I know what it is. It's a reminder. A mark that says, the stone remembers me, just like it remembers those 19 miners, just like it remembers everyone who's ever touched it. And sometimes, late at night when everything is quiet, I can feel it. A warmth in my palm, like someone is pressing their hand against mine from very far away, from very deep underground. And I hear it, faint, distant, but unmistakable. My own voice, screaming in the dark, calling for help. Except I haven't been back to that hollow. I haven't stood in those tunnels. That scream hasn't happened yet. The stone remembers the future, too. That's why I stopped going to church. Because if the rock can remember voices of the dying, if it can reach forward in time and record screams that haven't been screamed yet, then everything I thought I knew about the world, about reality, about the laws of physics and geology and time, all of it is wrong. And if I'm wrong about that, what else am I wrong about? What other impossible things are waiting out there in the deep places, in the old places, in the places where the stone has been listening for thousands of years? I live in the city now. Concrete and steel, nothing more than 50 years old. But even here, sometimes I press my hand against a wall and wonder if this concrete could remember what screams has it absorbed. What voices are trapped in the foundation of this building, this city, waiting for someone to hear them. The worst part is knowing that somewhere out there in Devil's Creek Hollow, there's a boulder with my handprint warm on its surface. And inside that boulder, in the dark, something is listening to a recording of my death, waiting for the day when the recording becomes real. When I'll go back, though I've promised myself I never will. When I'll press my hand against that stone one final time, and the future it's been playing for me becomes the present. The stone is patient. It's been there for thousands of years. It can wait for me. If you're ever in eastern Kentucky and you see a hollow marked with no trespassing signs, where the trees grow too thick and the silence feels wrong, keep driving. Don't be curious. Don't think you're too rational or too educated or too modern to be touched by something that lives in stone. The rock doesn't care what you believe. It just remembers. And once it remembers you, it never lets you go. If you've experienced something you can't explain, something that defies every rational explanation, share your story with the Haunted Fears horror family, because the world is full of places like Devil's Creek Hollow, places where the old things still live, where the stone still remembers. And we need to know where they are so we can stay away. Because I'm telling you now, some places aren't meant to be surveyed, aren't meant to be developed, aren't meant to be disturbed. Some places should be left alone in the dark, with their secrets sealed in stone. I learned that lesson. I just hope I don't have to learn it again when my palm grows warm and the screaming in the hollow finally speaks my name. We sold Grandma's farm for $60,000 less than market value. The realtor never asked why we wouldn't go near the property after dark, and we never told her what we reburied under the oak tree. My name is Rebecca, and I need to tell you what happened last summer because I'm running out of time. Not in the way you think. I'm healthy. I'm 34 years old. I should have decades left. But every day I look in the mirror and see someone else looking back. Someone older. Someone who died 128 years ago. And the worst part is, I'm starting to remember her life instead of mine. It started when my grandmother died in May. She was 93, lived her whole life on a small farm outside Pickens, South Carolina, right at the base of Table Rock Mountain. Beautiful property, 20 acres of rolling hills, apple orchards, a creek running through the back 40. The house itself was old, built in the 1890s, with that classic farmhouse look. Wraparound porch, tin roof, stone foundation. My brother, my two sisters, and I inherited it jointly. None of us wanted to live there. Too remote, too much work, too many memories of Grandma's stern face and stricter rules. We spent the first few weeks going through her things. Grandma hadn't been one for throwing anything away. We found clothes from the 60s, newspapers from the 40s, letters dating back to before World War I. Most of it was junk, but some of it we kept. Photo albums, her wedding ring, a quilt she'd made by hand. We were planning to sell the property and split the money 4 ways. Simple, clean, done by July. Then my brother found the cellar door. We'd been cleaning out the pantry, pulling down old jars of preserves that had probably been there since the Clinton administration, when he noticed the floorboards in the corner didn't quite match the rest. He pulled up the loose boards, and there it was, a heavy wooden door with an iron ring for a handle, padlocked shut. Old padlock, the kind that needed a skeleton key. We'd never seen it before. Never heard Grandma mention a root cellar, and we'd been coming to this house our whole lives. Should we open it? My younger sister asked. My older sister shook her head. If Grandma wanted us to know about it, she would have told us. But my brother was already looking for something to break the lock, found a crowbar in the barn, came back, and popped it open with one good hit. The padlock fell away, and we pulled up the door. Stairs led down into darkness. The smell that came up was strange, not musty like you'd expect, but sharp, chemical. Vinegar mixed with something else, something organic and wrong. I went down first. I don't know why. Maybe because I was the oldest. Maybe because I'd always been the brave one, the one who wasn't afraid of spiders or storms or the dark corners of Grandma's attic. I regret that now. God, how I regret that. The cellar was bigger than the house's footprint, which didn't make sense architecturally, but there it was. Stone walls, dirt floor, wooden shelves lining every surface. And on those shelves were jars, mason jars, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They filled every inch of shelf space, stacked 2 and 3 deep, arranged in neat rows like soldiers. Each jar was filled with liquid, some clear, some amber, some with a brownish tint, and floating in each jar was something. At first I thought they were vegetables, pickled things, preserved foods, normal root cellar stuff. But as I got closer, as my eyes adjusted to the dim light from my phone's flashlight, I realized they weren't vegetables. They weren't anything I recognized. Shapes that looked organic but wrong. Twisted forms that might have been animal, or might have been plant, or might have been something else entirely. Some jars held things that looked like fingers. Others contained masses of what could have been hair or roots or nerves. One jar held something that looked disturbingly like a tiny malformed face. Jesus Christ, my brother whispered behind me. He'd come down the stairs with my sisters. We stood there in a row, staring at the shelves, none of us wanting to touch anything. Then my younger sister noticed the labels. Each jar had a piece of paper taped to it, yellowed with age, covered in Grandma's handwriting. She pulled one down carefully. The label read, Rebecca Morrison, April 14th, 1991. That's my name. That's my birth date. My hands were shaking as I took the jar from her. The thing inside was about the size of a tennis ball, brownish gray, with what looked like veins running through it. It pulsed slightly in the liquid, though that might have been my imagination. Might have been the way the light hit it. Might have been. We started checking other jars. My brother found his. My older sister found hers. My younger sister found hers. All of them labeled with our names and birth dates. All of them containing something preserved, something wrong. We found jars for our parents too. For our cousins. For our aunts and uncles. For people we'd never heard of, with dates going back to the 1800s. Samuel Morrison, March 3rd, 1847. Elizabeth Morrison, July 19th, 1863. Thomas Morrison, November 11th, 1897. Morrison was Grandma's maiden name. These were family members, going back generations. Hundreds of jars, each one carefully labeled, each one containing something that had been preserved with the same meticulous care Grandma applied to everything she did. What the hell is this? My older sister's voice was high, panicked. What did she do? I didn't have an answer. None of us did. We stood there in that cellar, surrounded by jars containing pieces of everyone we'd ever known or been related to, and we had no idea what we were looking at. My brother wanted to call the police. My older sister wanted to burn the whole house down. My younger sister just wanted to leave, to pretend we'd never found any of it. I was the one who said we needed to understand what we were dealing with first. I was the one who said we should do research, look through Grandma's papers, try to figure out what these things were before we made any decisions. I wish I'd listened to my brother. We spent 3 days going through Grandma's things with new eyes. And we found it. A journal, hidden in a locked box in her bedroom closet. The journal went back 60 years, but it referenced older journals, older knowledge. It was written in Grandma's hand, but the words felt older than her, older than the house, older than the mountains themselves. She wrote about preservation, about keeping family safe, about an old way passed down through Morrison women since before they came to America, since before they had the name Morrison, a way to keep a piece of each family member, to preserve them, to make sure they never really died. The things in the jars weren't random. They were pieces of us, parts of us that had been taken when we were babies, too young to remember. A piece of umbilical cord maybe, or a bit of caul, or something else I didn't want to think about too hard. The journal said the preservation kept the family line strong, said it ensured we'd always be connected, always be part of the whole, even after death. Said it was protection, a blessing, a gift handed down through generations of women who understood that family was everything, that blood bound tighter than any other tie. It also said that if the jars were ever broken, ever opened, ever disturbed, there would be consequences. The journal wasn't clear on what those consequences were. Grandma's handwriting got messy in those sections, frantic, like she was scared to write it down plainly. I should have stopped reading then, should have taken the journal, taken my siblings, driven away, and never looked back. But I didn't. I kept reading, and I found the part about the oldest jar in the cellar. The jar labeled Rebecca Morrison, October 19th, 1897. Rebecca with a C, not Rebecca with an H like me. Rebecca who had been Grandma's great-aunt, who had died young under mysterious circumstances. The journal said Rebecca's preservation had failed, said something went wrong, something broke, and Rebecca became the first Morrison woman in generations to refuse the old way. Said she tried to destroy all the jars, tried to burn the knowledge, tried to sever the family line. She died before she could finish. They found her in the cellar with her hands burned, her throat torn, her eyes gone. They preserved her anyway, put her in a jar like all the others, but her jar was different. Her jar was dangerous. The journal said it should never be touched, never be moved, never be opened. Said Rebecca was still in there, still angry, still trying to get out and finish what she'd started. I found Rebecca's jar that night. It was in the back corner of the cellar, behind all the others, covered in dust. The label was faded but legible, and the thing inside was different from all the other preserved pieces. It was darker, larger, and it moved. Not a pulse, not a trick of the light. It moved deliberately, pressing against the glass, forming shapes that looked almost like handprints, almost like a face, almost like it was looking at me. I don't remember picking up the jar. I don't remember carrying it upstairs. But I must have, because the next thing I knew, I was standing in the kitchen at 2 a.m, the jar on the counter in front of me, and I was unscrewing the lid. The smell that came out was overwhelming. Vinegar and rot and something else, something that smelled like fire and fear and rage that had been fermenting for over a century. The thing inside started dissolving immediately, breaking down into the liquid, turning it black. I dropped the jar. It shattered on the kitchen floor. The liquid spread across the tiles, and I swear to God it moved toward me, reached for me, wrapped around my ankles before I could step back. Then nothing. Just me standing in a pool of black liquid and broken glass at 2 a.m, wondering what the hell I'd just done. The changes started the next day. Small things at first. I woke up knowing how to can vegetables using methods I'd never learned. I looked in the mirror and saw my face, but older, with lines and angles that didn't quite match. I spoke a sentence to my sister and used words I don't normally use, phrases from another era. She noticed, asked if I was feeling okay. I said I was fine, but I wasn't fine. Each day that passed, I became less myself and more someone else. More Rebecca. I started having memories that weren't mine, growing up in this house when it was new, learning the old ways from women whose faces I recognized from ancient photographs, being forced to preserve my own peace in a jar when I was old enough to understand what it meant. and the anger. God, the anger Rebecca felt. The betrayal, the horror of realizing what her family had been doing for generations, the desperate need to stop it. I tried to tell my siblings what was happening. They thought I was having a breakdown. Grief, they said. Stress. Too much time in that creepy house. They wanted me to see a therapist, take some time off, come stay with one of them in the city. I couldn't explain that I was disappearing, that someone else was taking over, that every morning I woke up with fewer of my own memories and more of hers. A week after I opened the jar, I woke up unable to remember my daughter's name. I have a daughter. Had a daughter. Have. Present tense. She's 7 years old. Lives with her father because we're divorced. Her name is... Rebecca doesn't have a daughter. Rebecca never married. Rebecca died at 34, trying to burn down the root cellar. I went back to Grandma's house. My siblings had already hired someone to start clearing it out. I told them we needed to destroy the cellar first. Told them it was dangerous, that something was wrong with it. They agreed, probably because I looked crazy enough that they didn't want to argue. We hired a contractor, paid him extra to demo the cellar, told him to fill it in with concrete and not ask questions. He broke the first jar with his sledgehammer, then the second, then dozens more. By the time we realized what was happening and screamed at him to stop, he destroyed at least 50 jars. The cellar filled with that smell, that vinegar rot rage smell. The contractor stumbled out, said he felt dizzy, drove away. We never saw him again. His company said he never came back to work. His wife filed a missing persons report 2 days later. We sealed the cellar ourselves, boarded up the door, poured concrete down the stairs, sold the property to a developer who wanted to tear down the house and build something new. We didn't tell him about the cellar. We didn't tell anyone. We just wanted it gone, buried, forgotten. But it doesn't matter. Too many jars were broken. Too many pieces were released. I'm not the only one changing. My brother called yesterday, said he keeps having memories of being someone named Samuel, someone who fought in the Civil War, someone who died in a prison camp. My older sister says she's forgetting how to use her phone, how to drive, how to do things that didn't exist in 1863. My younger sister stopped answering our calls. The preservation worked for generations because it was contained, controlled, passed down through women who knew how to maintain it. But we broke it. We opened doors that were meant to stay locked. We released pieces of ancestors who have been waiting in those jars for over a century, waiting for a chance to come back, to live again, to take over the bodies of their descendants. I'm writing this now while I still can, while there's still enough of me left to remember why it matters. Rebecca is almost here. I can feel her just under my skin, pushing up, taking over. Soon she'll be all that's left. Soon I'll be the one preserved, trapped, screaming silently in the back of my own mind while she finishes what she started in 1897. If you inherit something old, something preserved, something your family kept hidden for generations, leave it alone. Don't open it. Don't try to understand it. Just walk away. Because some traditions are meant to die, and the things we preserve aren't always meant to be awakened. My name is Rebecca, or it was. Now I'm not sure whose name I carry anymore, but I know one thing. When Rebecca takes over completely, she's going to find every remaining jar from that cellar, and she's going to destroy every single one, even if it means destroying everyone they're attached to, even if it means destroying me. The realtor called this morning. The developer started digging on Grandma's property. They found something under the oak tree. More jars, dozens of them. Older ones, dating back to the 1700s. They asked if we wanted them. I said yes, not because I'm Rebecca, because I'm Rebecca, and I have work to finish. If you're part of the Haunted Fears horror family, and you're listening to this, do something for me. If you ever meet someone named Morrison from Pickens County, South Carolina, check their eyes. If they look older than they should, if they seem to remember things they couldn't possibly know, if they speak like they're from another time, run. because it means the preservation failed. It means someone's ancestor is wearing their face. It means the old ways are still alive, still spreading, still taking over one descendant at a time. And there are so many jars left to open. My Park Service ID says I've worked here for 16 years. According to my memory, it's been 16 years and 3 weeks, but I can't account for those 21 days on any calendar that exists. My name is Amiri, and I'm a ranger on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Night shift mostly. I patrol the maintenance roads, check for disabled vehicles, make sure nobody's camping where they shouldn't be. It's quiet work, the kind I prefer. Or it was, until the night I took the wrong turn near Mount Mitchell and ended up somewhere the parkway doesn't go. It was October 17th, around 11 p.m. Heavy fog had rolled in off the mountains, the kind that turns your headlights into useless white walls. I was creeping along at maybe 15 miles an hour, following the center line more by feel than by sight. My radio crackled with dispatch checking in on me, asking if I needed to call it a night. I told them I'd make one more loop and head back to the station. That's when I saw the maintenance road. I've driven every inch of this parkway for 16 years. I know where every maintenance road branches off, know which ones are paved and which are gravel, know which ones have locked gates and which ones stay open. This road wasn't on any of my maps, but there it was. A paved turnoff just past mile marker 73, unmarked, no gate, looking like it had been there forever. Probably just missed it in the fog before, I thought. Probably a new access road for the construction crews. I radioed it in, told dispatch I was checking an unmarked maintenance road to make sure nobody was stuck down there. They acknowledged, told me to be careful, said they'd lost me on GPS for a second, but I was coming back through. The road curved down into the fog, smooth asphalt, perfectly maintained. My headlights caught the reflective paint of the center line, and I followed it deeper into the soup. The fog was getting thicker if that was possible, pressing against the windshield like something alive. I'd driven maybe 2 miles when I saw the first car. It was pulled over on the shoulder, hazards blinking. An old sedan, maybe from the 70s, painted that particular shade of brown that nobody's used since. I pulled up behind it, hit my spotlight, got out. The car was empty, keys in the ignition, engine still warm, driver's door hanging open. No sign of anyone around. "Hello?" I called out, my voice swallowed by the fog. "Park Service. Anyone need assistance?" Nothing. Just the fog and the smell of exhaust from leaded gasoline, a smell I shouldn't be smelling because they stopped using leaded gas decades ago. I went back to my truck, tried to radio it in. Static. Complete white noise, no dispatch, no signal. My radio had never failed before. I checked my phone. No service, which wasn't unusual in the mountains, but the time display was wrong. It said 11:47 p.m. October 17th, 1983. I stared at that date for maybe 30 seconds before I convinced myself it was just a glitch. Dropped my phone. Battery probably reset itself. I turned back to my truck, decided to drive back to the main parkway and report the abandoned vehicle from there. But when I looked up, there were more cars. 3 of them, stretched out ahead of me along the shoulder, all with their hazards blinking. All empty, all old. One from the 60s, one from the 80s. One that looked brand new, but was a model I didn't recognize, something futuristic that hadn't been made yet. I got back in my truck and drove past them. Then there were 5 more cars, then 10, then I lost count. All empty, all with their hazards on, all from different decades. Some were decades old, some looked like they were from the future. All of them just sitting there in the fog with their engines warm and their drivers gone. The road kept curving, kept winding through the fog, and I kept following it because there was nowhere else to go. No turnoffs, no driveways, no way to turn around on the narrow pavement. Just the endless line of abandoned cars, and the fog pressing in, and the center line leading me deeper. Then I saw headlights coming toward me. Not moving, just sitting there, in my lane. I slowed down, hit my spotlight. It was a pickup truck, maybe from the 90s, facing me, hazards blinking. A man stood beside it, waving his arms. I stopped about 20 feet away, grabbed my flashlight, got out. "Thank God," he said, rushing toward me. "Thank God someone else. How long have you been here?" "Just got here," I told him. "What's going on? Why's your truck?" "I don't know," he interrupted. "I don't know. I was driving on the parkway, took what I thought was a shortcut during the fog, and now I can't find my way back. I've been driving in circles for hours. Every time I think I'm getting somewhere, I just end up back here, and there are all these cars, and nobody's in them, and my radio doesn't work, and—" "Slow down," I said. "When did you get here?" "Tonight, October 17th, around midnight." "What year?" He looked at me like I was crazy. 1997. I felt something cold slide down my spine. "It's 2024, I said. He took a step back. "Bullshit. No way. I left my wife at home watching TV. My son's probably asleep by now. I have work tomorrow morning. It's 1997. Before I could respond, more headlights appeared in the fog behind him, then more behind me. Not moving, just appearing out of the soup, one after another, until we were surrounded by vehicles from different eras, all with their hazards blinking, all empty except for us. "There are others," he said quietly. "I've met 3 other people. They're all from different years. One woman says it's 2011. One guy insists it's 1983. There's a kid who swears it's 2019. We're all stuck here, all trying to find our way back, and none of us can." "Where are they now?" "Driving. That's all we do. Drive in circles through this fog, hoping to find the exit. But there isn't one. The road just loops and loops, and more people keep showing up and nobody ever leaves." My radio suddenly crackled to life. Not dispatch. Different voices, overlapping, all calling for help from different years. A woman's voice from 1983 saying she's been here for hours. A man from 2007 asking if anyone can hear him. A teenager from 2015 crying that his battery is dying and he doesn't know what to do. "Get in your truck," I told him. "Follow me. We're getting out of here." He laughed, a bitter sound. "You think I haven't tried. You think we all haven't tried. This road doesn't want us to leave. But I'm a ranger. I know these mountains. I drove back the way I'd come, the man from 1997 following me, and we picked up speed. The fog stayed thick. The cars stayed on the shoulders with their hazards blinking, and the road kept curving through the darkness. My speedometer said 45, but it felt like we weren't moving at all, like we were on a treadmill going nowhere. Then my dash cam caught something my eyes couldn't see. I'd been recording the whole time, standard procedure on night patrol, and when I glanced at the screen, I saw what we were really driving through. Not fog, darkness. Complete, absolute darkness, the kind that exists before light was invented. The road wasn't pavement. It was nothing. We were driving on nothing, through nothing, and the only thing keeping us from falling into that void was the act of driving itself. I pushed harder on the gas. 50, 60. The speedometer climbed, but we weren't moving faster, just burning fuel, just going through the motions. Behind me, the man from 1997's headlights flickered and died. I looked in my rearview mirror and saw his truck vanish into the darkness, hazards blinking once and then gone. Then my headlights hit something solid. A wall. Rock face. Dead end. I slammed on the brakes, and my truck stopped inches from the stone, but it wasn't a wall. It was the main parkway, the real parkway, cutting across my path like it had always been there. I could see the mile marker, 73, the exact spot where I'd turned onto the maintenance road. I drove forward, crossed the intersection, and suddenly I was back. Real fog, normal fog, the kind you can see the other side of. My radio exploded with dispatch calling my name, asking where I'd been, saying I'd been off the grid for 45 minutes. "I'm here," I said. "I'm fine. Just got turned around in the fog." 45 minutes, they said. But my truck's dash said I'd been driving for 6 hours. My body said I'd been driving for 3 days. And when I got back to the station and checked the calendar, it was November 7th, 3 weeks had passed. Nobody believed me. They said I'd had a medical episode, maybe a stroke, maybe a seizure. Said I'd been found parked at mile marker 73 with my truck running and me unconscious behind the wheel. Said I'd been taken to the hospital, kept for observation, released with a clean bill of health. But I don't remember any of that. I remember driving through the fog. I remember the cars. I remember the man from 1997. I went back to mile marker 73 the next time it rained, the next time fog rolled in, thick enough to swallow the road. The maintenance road wasn't there, just the parkway, curving through the mountains like always. Nothing unusual, nothing out of place. But my dash cam footage is still there. 45 minutes of darkness and nothing, my truck driving through void, headlights illuminating nothing but black. And the audio is full of voices. Dispatch calling my name, but underneath that, hundreds of other voices, all calling for help, all from different years, all saying they're lost on the parkway and can't find their way home. I still work here, still do night patrol, but I don't drive past mile marker 73 anymore, and I never take maintenance roads I don't recognize, because somewhere out there, in the fog between moments, there's a road that doesn't exist. And on that road are people who took a wrong turn and never came back, driving in circles through darkness, waiting for someone to find them. The man from 1997 is still out there. So is the woman from 2011, the guy from 1983, the kid from 2019, so are hundreds more, maybe thousands, all stuck on that loop, all burning gas they don't have, all trying to find their way back to years they'll never reach. And every time the fog rolls in, every time someone calls dispatch to report taking a maintenance road they've never seen before, I wonder if they'll make it back. Or if they'll join the others, driving forever through the nothing, their hazards blinking in the dark, their radios calling out to empty air. If you're listening, Haunted Fears horror family, and you ever find yourself on the Blue Ridge Parkway in heavy fog, stick to the main road. Don't take shortcuts. Don't follow unmarked turnoffs, 'cause some roads don't lead anywhere. They just take you away from everywhere, and they never let you come back. We found the room with our names on the door on a Tuesday. Inside was a wedding photo we won't take for another 6 months, and a sympathy card from my mother, dated next spring. My name is Berkeley, and my wife and I bought our first house 3 months ago. It was a foreclosure in Elkins, West Virginia. A beautiful Victorian on the edge of town, sitting in the Tigard Valley, with the mountains rising up behind it like ancient guardians. The house was a steal at $90,000. The realtor said the previous owners had walked away in the middle of the night, left everything behind, never came back for any of it. That should have been our first warning. But we were young, stupid, excited about finally owning something. The house was gorgeous. 3 stories, wraparound porch, original hardwood floors, stained glass windows that caught the afternoon light and painted rainbows across the walls. A little outdated, sure, but nothing we couldn't fix. We moved in on a Saturday in August, full of plans and possibilities. The first week was perfect. We spent our days unpacking boxes and our nights on the porch drinking wine, watching the sun set behind the mountains. The house had 4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a study, a parlor, a dining room, and a kitchen. We knew every room, had explored every closet and cabinet. Or so we thought. On the 8th day, I woke up at dawn needing water. I walked downstairs in the dark, navigating by memory, but when I got to the ground floor, I turned left instead of right. I ended up in a room I'd never seen before. It was small, maybe 10 by 10, completely empty except for a single wooden chair in the center. The walls were papered in a pattern I didn't recognize, dark roses on darker vines. I stood there for a solid minute trying to figure out where the hell I was, how I'd missed this room during all our tours and explorations. I chalked it up to still being half asleep, to not knowing the house as well as I thought I did. I went back to bed and didn't mention it to my wife, but 2 days later, she found a different room. This one was upstairs, at the end of the second-floor hallway, where there should have been a wall. She called me at work, excited, saying we had a bonus room we hadn't known about. We could turn it into a home gym or an art studio. I came home and looked at it. The room was there, but I knew there had only been a wall there before. That night, I measured the house, walked it off with a tape measure, counted the dimensions of every room, did the math. The interior square footage didn't match the exterior. The house was bigger on the inside than it should be. Not by much, maybe 100 square feet. Enough to be noticeable if you were paying attention. Small enough to explain away as bad math or thick walls. A week later, we found another room. This one was behind a door in the study that I would swear hadn't been there the day before. My wife disagreed, said she'd seen the door, just never bothered to open it. Inside was a small bathroom, fully functional, with fixtures that matched the ones throughout the rest of the house. We argued about it. I was certain it was new. She thought I was losing it. The rooms kept appearing. One every few days at first, then one every day, then multiple rooms at once. Closets where walls used to be, hallways that curved in new directions, a basement door in the kitchen that opened onto stairs leading down to a room full of old furniture covered in dust, a door on the third floor that led to an attic we'd never accessed before, full of boxes labeled with names we didn't recognize. We started keeping account. By the end of September, the house had 17 rooms. By mid-October, 23. The dimensions made no sense anymore. The hallways twisted in ways that shouldn't be possible. Walking from the kitchen to the dining room sometimes took you through 3 other rooms that hadn't existed the day before. The house was growing, expanding, creating space where space couldn't exist. Then we started finding things in the new rooms. Not random things, specific things. A bedroom appeared with clothes hanging in the closet. Women's clothes in my wife's size and style. A nursery showed up with a crib and changing table and mobile hanging above it, even though we didn't have kids, weren't planning on having kids for years. An office appeared with a desk covered in paperwork, bills with our names on them, dates from next year, years from now. The worst was the room with the photographs. It appeared on the 3rd floor, behind a door that had definitely been a linen closet the day before. The walls were covered in framed photos of us. Pictures from our wedding day, except we weren't married yet. Pictures of us with a baby we didn't have. Pictures of us looking older, grayer, standing in front of this house looking exhausted and terrified. And at the very back of the room, a single photo of a funeral. My wife's funeral. The date on the bottom was 6 months from now. "We need to leave," I told her that night. "We need to get out of this house." "And go where?" she asked. "We put everything into buying this place. We can't afford to just walk away." "I don't think we can afford to stay." But she was stubborn, practical, said we were being irrational, that there had to be a logical explanation. Maybe the previous owners had added rooms and never updated the floor plans. Maybe we'd just never fully explored the house. Maybe we were both stressed and exhausted and seeing patterns where there weren't any. I wanted to believe her. I tried to believe her. But then I found my room. It was on the 2nd floor, tucked between the master bedroom and what used to be a bathroom. The door had my name on it. Not a label, not a sign. The name was carved directly into the wood. Berkeley. I opened it slowly, my hand shaking. Inside was my death. Not literally, but everything suggested it. There was a hospital bed in the center of the room, the kind with rails on the sides, medical equipment I didn't recognize, a chair beside the bed where someone had been sitting, probably for hours, probably for days, and on the walls, pinned up like a sick gallery, were medical records. My medical records dated over the next 3 years. Diagnoses, treatment plans, prognoses that got worse and worse as the dates progressed. The final one was dated February 2027. It was a death certificate. I backed out of the room and slammed the door, stood in the hallway breathing hard, trying not to panic. When I looked back, the door was gone. Just a wall, smooth and unbroken, like the room had never existed. But it came back. 2 days later, the door reappeared. I didn't open it that time. or the next time, or the time after that, but I could feel it there, waiting. The house was showing me my future, showing us both our futures, and every room it created was another step along that path, another moment we'd have to live through. My wife found her room a week later. She wouldn't tell me what was in it, just came out pale and shaking and said we had to leave, right now, tonight. We packed bags, grabbed our important documents, got in the car, and drove away from the house without looking back. We made it as far as the end of the driveway before the car died. Engine just quit. No warning, no explanation. We tried to restart it. Nothing. We got out, started walking down the road toward town, but the road kept going, kept stretching out in front of us, and no matter how far we walked, we never got any farther from the house. It stayed right there behind us, huge and impossible, growing more rooms with every step we took. We ended up back inside. We didn't decide to go back. We just ended up there. One moment we were walking down the road, the next we were standing in the foyer, the front door closing behind us with a soft click. That was 2 weeks ago. We've tried to leave 6 more times since then. The house won't let us. The doors open, but they only open to more rooms. The windows look out on the mountains, but when we try to climb through them, we end up in different parts of the house. The basement, the attic, rooms we've never seen before. The house is folding in on itself, creating a maze we can't escape. And we keep finding rooms that show us things we don't want to see. A kitchen where everything is covered in dust and cobwebs, dishes left in the sink from years ago. A bedroom where the bed is made but rotting, sheets yellowed with age. A bathroom where the mirror shows reflections of us, but older, decades older, still trapped here, still looking for a way out. Yesterday, we found a room with our daughter in it. We don't have a daughter, but there she was, maybe 7 or 8 years old, playing with toys in a room decorated with butterflies and rainbows. She looked up when we opened the door and smiled at us, called us Mom and Dad, asked when dinner would be ready. When we tried to take her with us, tried to lead her out of the room, she disappeared. Just faded away like smoke. The room stayed, but she was gone. We're sleeping in the room that used to be our bedroom, though I'm not sure it's the same room anymore. The walls are a different color than I remember. The windows are in different places. The door leads to a hallway I don't recognize. Every morning we wake up and the house has changed again. More rooms, more hallways, more doors, with more futures we're going to have to live. I think I understand now what happened to the previous owners. I found their names in one of the new rooms, a study filled with papers and journals. They'd been here for 12 years, bought the house as newlyweds, thought they got a deal. The house started growing rooms after the first week. They tried to leave, couldn't. Spent over a decade trapped inside, watching the house show them their future, one room at a time. The final journal entry just said, "The house is preparing us for something. All these rooms, all these visions, they're not random. It's showing us what we need to see, what we need to become. I think we're ready now. I think it's time to accept what we are." The entry is dated 3 years ago. I don't know what happened to them after that, but I found another room yesterday. A room with 2 empty chairs facing a blank wall. There's a plaque above the doorway that says "Final Room." I haven't gone inside yet. Neither has my wife. But the door keeps calling to us. We can hear it even when we're in other parts of the house. A soft whisper saying our names, saying it's time, saying we're ready. I don't know if we'll resist much longer. The house has been very patient with us, but I can feel it getting impatient now. The rooms are appearing faster. The visions are getting more insistent. Last night, I woke up in a room I didn't recognize, lying in a bed that wasn't ours, and I couldn't remember how I got there or when I fell asleep. My wife was beside me, but she was older, her hair gray, her face lined with years we haven't lived yet. When I touched her shoulder, she crumbled to dust. I woke up for real then, back in our bedroom, my wife sleeping peacefully beside me. But I could still feel the dust on my fingers, still smell the decay. The house was showing me what's coming, what's inevitable. We're going to grow old here. We're going to die here. And the house is going to keep us, preserve us in its rooms, add us to its collection of futures that already happened. If you're reading this, if anyone finds this, don't buy foreclosed houses in the Tigert Valley. Don't buy houses where the previous owners disappeared. Don't buy beautiful Victorians that are too cheap, too perfect, too good to be true. Because some houses aren't meant to be lived in. They're meant to live in you, to learn you, to map out every possible future until they find the one where you stay forever. The final room is calling again. My wife is awake now. She's looking at me. She knows. We both know. It's time to see what's in that room. Time to accept what the house has been trying to show us all along. Maybe the previous owners were right. Maybe we're ready now. Maybe this is where we were always meant to end up. The door is open. The house is waiting. Haunted Fears Horror Family. If you see a beautiful Victorian for sale in Elkins, West Virginia, just keep driving. The house on Tigert Valley Road doesn't need new owners. It already has everyone it will ever need, living out every possible version of their lives in rooms that shouldn't exist, waiting in that final room for the future to catch up to what the house already knows. We're going in now. The house is calling, and we don't have the strength to say no anymore. This is the 47th Friday in a row. I know because I've been carving marks under the sink, and this morning I counted 46 lines I don't remember making. My name is Emberlyn, and I need to tell you what's happening to me and my friends before we forget again. Before the cabin resets everything and we wake up thinking it's October 13th for the 48th time. Before whatever's keeping us here learns enough from our mistakes to keep us forever. We came here for a weekend. Just 3 of us, me, my roommate, and his boyfriend, renting a cabin off Porter's Creek Trail in the Smokies near the old Greenbrier community. It was supposed to be a digital detox, a chance to unplug and reconnect with nature. We arrived Thursday evening, October 12th. We had until Sunday checkout. That was 6 weeks ago, but according to every calendar in this cabin, it's still Friday, October 13th. The first loop, we didn't notice. We woke up Friday morning, made breakfast, went hiking. The weather was perfect. Crisp autumn air, leaves turning gold and red, mountains rising up around us like sleeping giants. We came back to the cabin in the afternoon, played cards, made dinner. Normal vacation stuff. We went to bed around 11, exhausted and happy. We woke up Friday morning, made breakfast. The same breakfast, pancakes and coffee, same conversation about how well we'd slept. My roommate mentioned a dream about being trapped in a loop, and we laughed about it. We went hiking. Same trail, same perfect weather, same leaves that should have been a day more faded but weren't. Same cardinal singing from the same branch at the same time. It was his boyfriend who noticed first. "Didn't we do this yesterday?" he asked during dinner. We were eating spaghetti, the same spaghetti we'd made the night before, except we hadn't made it the night before, had we? Thursday was chili, wasn't it? Or was Thursday spaghetti and Friday chili? We checked our phones. No service, but the internal clocks all said Friday, October 13th. We checked the kitchen calendar. Friday, October 13th. The TV. No cable, but the guide showed Friday's programming. My smartwatch said I'd walked the same number of steps as yesterday, burned the same calories, had the same heart rate fluctuations at the exact same times. Maybe we got confused, I said. Maybe today is Saturday and yesterday was Friday. But we couldn't all be confused about the same thing. We sat up that night, determined to stay awake until midnight, to watch Friday turn into Saturday. We played cards until our eyes burned, watched the clock on the microwave count down. 11:47, 11:52, 11:58, 11:59, midnight. We blinked. It was morning, sunlight streaming through the windows, the smell of coffee brewing, but none of us had set the coffee maker. We were sitting at the table, cards dealt in front of us, but it was a different game than we'd been playing, and we were all desperately trying to remember what we'd Been doing moments ago, but the memories were slippery, sliding away like water. What day is it? His boyfriend asked. We checked. Friday, October 13th. That's when we tried to leave. Packed our stuff, loaded the car, started driving down the mountain road. We made it maybe 2 miles before the road started looking familiar. Then very familiar. Then we were pulling up to the cabin again, but from the opposite direction, as if the road had looped back on itself. We tried again. Same thing. Tried a different road. Same result. Every route led back to the cabin. We hiked out. Left the car, took the trail on foot, determined to walk all the way to the ranger station if we had to. The trail wound through the forest, past streams and overlooks, beautiful and endless. After 6 hours of hiking, we came out at the cabin. From behind, we'd somehow circled back without ever turning around. By then, we were panicking. We tried everything, followed the stream, thinking water had to flow somewhere. It led to a pool behind the cabin we'd never noticed before. Climbed to the highest point we could find to look for other signs of civilization. Saw only forest, stretching in every direction, and there in the center, the cabin. Tried to stay awake again to break the loop by refusing to sleep. We made it to 2 a.m. before we blinked, and it was morning. Friday morning, October 13th. Again, that was loop 4, or maybe 5. I started carving marks under the sink, one for each time we woke up on Friday. Somewhere around loop 15, I noticed the cabin was changing. Small things at first. The couch cushions were arranged differently. The kitchen knife was sharper. I cut myself, and hadn't the day before. Books on the shelf were in a different order. Then bigger things. A new door appeared in the hallway, leading to a storage room we'd never seen. The bathroom mirror was wider. An extra window looked out on a part of the forest that shouldn't be visible from that angle. The cabin was learning from us, adapting, rearranging itself. Around loop 20, we started finding notes. My handwriting, but I didn't remember writing them. Don't open the basement door. There was no basement. They're watching through the mirrors. The forest takes someone every 7th loop. This is not Friday. We tried to warn our past selves, left notes in obvious places with things we'd learned. But every morning the notes were gone, or moved, or changed. One morning I found a note in my own handwriting that said, "You can't help us. We already tried everything you're thinking." It was dated loop 63. 63. If that note was real, we'd been here much longer than my marks indicated, unless I'd been resetting too, starting my count over without realizing it. What if this wasn't loop 47? What if it was loop 447? The worst part is forgetting. Not just forgetting the previous loops, forgetting who we are. Around loop 30, my roommate couldn't remember his boyfriend's name for the first hour after waking. His boyfriend forgot his own mother's face. I forgot I had a sister until I found a photo in my wallet and didn't recognize the woman standing next to me. We started writing things down, essential information, our names, our families, our lives outside this cabin. But the cabin learned that too. Now, when we wake up, the papers are subtly wrong. My roommate's name is spelled differently. His boyfriend's hometown is someplace none of us have heard of. My sister's face in the photo changes, sometimes older, sometimes younger, sometimes not my sister at all. And we've started seeing things that aren't us. Shadows moving in the cabin when we're all in the same room. Footsteps upstairs when we're downstairs. Sounds of cooking from the kitchen when no one's there. Voices having conversations we remember having, but from the wrong loops, mixed together like someone's playing recordings on shuffle. Yesterday, or one of the Fridays, I've lost track. I went to the bathroom and saw someone in the mirror behind me. She looked like me, but wrong. Older. Exhausted. She mouthed something. We've been here for years. My roommate found a photo album in the cabin yesterday. It was full of pictures of us. In the cabin. But we looked different in each photo. Different clothes, different ages, different haircuts. Some of the photos were old, yellowed with age. One showed us standing in front of the cabin in what looked like the 1970s. based on the clothes and the faded color. Another was more recent, digital quality, us with smartphones we don't own. All of them were dated October 13th, just different years. "I think we've been here before," he said quietly. "I think we keep coming back. Different versions of us, different years, all trapped on the same day." "That's impossible," his boyfriend said. But we could all see the truth in the photos. The cabin wasn't just trapping us. It had trapped others before. Maybe it had trapped us before, different iterations, different timelines, all bleeding into each other. This morning, this Friday morning, I found something new. A calendar from 1983 hidden behind the refrigerator. October 13th was circled in red. Below it, someone had written in tiny, frantic handwriting, "Loop 2847. Sarah, Ben, Michael, we're still here. The cabin won't let us die. It needs us to keep living the day over and over to feed it somehow. We're not the first, won't be the last. To whoever reads this, burn it down. Sarah, Ben, and Michael aren't us. I'm Emberlyn. My roommate has a different name, his boyfriend another. But maybe we are them now. Maybe after enough loops, we become whoever the cabin needs us to be." We tried burning it down. Loop 39. Gathered everything flammable, doused it in gasoline from the shed, lit it on fire, watched the cabin burn, stood outside in the cold, watching the flames consume everything. When the roof collapsed, we felt something like hope. We blinked. Woke up in the cabin. Friday morning, October 13th. The cabin perfect and whole, no sign of fire, no smell of smoke. But there was a new photo in the album. Us, standing in front of the burning cabin, smiling. I don't know what we are anymore. Don't know if we're alive or ghosts or something in between. Don't know if the world outside still exists or if there's only this cabin, this day, this loop. My roommate barely speaks now. His boyfriend spends hours staring at the walls. I carve marks under the sink, but I'm not sure they mean anything anymore. Today, this Friday, we found another note. My handwriting. It said, "This is your last warning. Stop trying to escape. Stop trying to break the loop. The cabin is teaching itself through your attempts. Every failed escape makes it stronger, makes the trap tighter. You've already been here longer than you know. Look at your hands." I looked at my hands. They were older, wrinkled, weathered, spotted with age. But when I looked in the mirror, my face was young, 25, like it should be. Like it was when we arrived, but my hands belonged to someone in their 70s. My roommate's hair has started turning gray at the temples. His boyfriend's eyes have this 1,000-yard stare, like a soldier who's seen too much. We're aging in pieces, different parts of us wearing out at different rates, while the cabin keeps us alive enough to experience the loop, but not alive enough to leave. I'm writing this now, hiding it in a place the cabin hasn't changed yet, inside the wall behind the loose panel in the bedroom. If you find this, if you somehow end up in a cabin off Porter's Creek Trail in the Smokies, if you wake up and it's Friday, October 13th, and it keeps being Friday no matter what you do, run. Don't wait to see if it's real. Don't think you can outsmart it. Don't believe you're different from everyone else who's been trapped here. Just run. Keep running. Even if the roads loop back. Even if the trails lead in circles. Even if you end up at the cabin again and again, keep running, because the moment you stop, the moment you accept that this is your life now, that's when the cabin wins. That's when you become part of it, like Sarah and Ben and Michael and all the others whose names we're probably wearing now without knowing it. I can hear my roommate calling for me. Says breakfast is ready. Says it's a beautiful day for a hike. Says we should enjoy our Friday. But I know what day it is. What day it's always going to be. Haunted Fears horror family. If someone you know goes to the Smokies for a weekend and doesn't come back, don't look for them on the trails. Don't ask the rangers. Don't go to Porter's Creek Trail. They're still there, living Friday over and over. And if you go looking, you'll just be joining them. It's morning again. The sun is streaming through the windows. I can smell coffee. Brewing. My roommate is asking what day it is. I already know the answer. I've been underground hundreds of times, mapped miles of passages, rappelled into pits that swallowed light whole. But I only came back from a cave once, not alone. And the thing sharing my skin is learning how to be me. My name is Hunter, and I'm a caver. Not a casual spelunker who does the tourist caves with handrails and electric lights. I'm talking technical caving, the kind where you squeeze through passages barely wider than your shoulders, where you descend vertical drops in complete darkness, where you might be the first human being to see a particular chamber in the history of the world. I've been doing this for 12 years. I know cave safety. I know rescue protocols. I know every warning sign that tells you to turn back. I ignored all of them in Panther Creek Cave. The cave system is in Tazewell County, Virginia, near Burke's Garden. That weird circular valley the locals call God's thumbprint. The main cave entrance has been known for decades, but last March, a sinkhole opened up during heavy rains and revealed a new passage. My caving club got permission from the landowner to explore it, do a preliminary survey, see if it connected to the known system. I went in alone. That was my first mistake. You never cave solo, it's the cardinal rule, but I'd had a fight with my survey partner, and I was too proud and too stupid to wait. I told myself I'd just do a quick reconnaissance, take some photos, mark the passage for a proper expedition later. In and out in 2 hours. The new passage was beautiful. Cathedral ceilings hung with stalactites, flowstone formations that looked like frozen waterfalls, pools of water so clear they were invisible until you nearly stepped in them. I went deeper than I should have, following the passage as it sloped downward, always thinking the next chamber would be the last one before I turned back. That's when I found the petroglyphs. They were carved into a dry section of wall, protected from the water that sculpted everything else. Not Native American. I've seen plenty of those, know the styles and symbols. These were older, cruder, more desperate. Stick figures running, something chasing them, and words, or what looked like words, in no language I recognized. But the meaning was clear from the images. Something lives down here. It wears the skin poorly. Do not let it follow you up. I took photos. Told myself they were probably a hoax, some modern cavers having fun. But they were covered in a thin layer of flowstone, which meant they were old. Very old. Hundreds of years, at least, maybe thousands. I should have turned back then. But the passage kept going, and I kept following it. The petroglyphs appeared again and again, getting more frantic, more detailed, showing the thing that lived below taking people, wearing them. The final carving showed someone climbing back to the surface, but their shadow was wrong, split into two shadows, one inside the other. The passage opened into a massive chamber, easily 300 feet across. My headlamp couldn't reach the far walls. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above me, and in the center of the chamber was a pit. Not a natural formation. It was too perfectly circular, too deliberately cut. The walls were smooth, almost polished, descending straight down into absolute darkness. I stood at the edge and looked down. My light showed maybe the first 50 feet, then nothing. I picked up a rock and dropped it. Counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No sound. Either the pit was deeper than sound could travel in 10 seconds, or whatever was at the bottom was soft enough to absorb the impact without noise. That's when I felt it. A presence. Not hostile, just aware. Something was watching me from the pit. I couldn't see it, couldn't hear it, but I knew it was there with the same certainty I knew the stone beneath my feet was solid. Every instinct screamed at me to run. I backed away from the pit slowly. My light caught something at the edge. Another carving, fresh, the stone dust still pale and loose at its base. It showed a figure descending into the pit, and another figure emerging. But they weren't the same person. The one coming out was wrong, misshapen, as if someone had drawn a human from memory, but couldn't quite get the proportions right. I ran, turned and ran back through the passage, my light bouncing wildly off the walls, my breath loud in the confined space. Behind me, I heard something else breathing, matching my pace, following me. Not footsteps, something smoother, slithering, moving faster than anything that size should move in a cave. I made it back to the entrance, climbed out into the daylight, into the rain that was still falling. I stood there in the sinkhole, soaking wet, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. I was alone. Nothing had followed me out. I was fine. But I wasn't fine. The first sign was the mirror. I got home, showered, stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing my teeth. My reflection was slightly delayed. Not much, maybe half a second, but enough to notice. I moved my hand. My reflection moved a beat later. I blinked. My reflection blinked, then looked at me for just a moment before looking away. I told myself it was exhaustion, stress, too much time in the dark playing tricks on my eyes. But it kept happening. My reflection in windows, in water, in polished surfaces. Always slightly wrong, slightly delayed, watching me when I wasn't looking directly at it. Then my friends started commenting, asked if I was feeling okay, said I seemed different. One of them said I moved weird now, couldn't put her finger on it, but something about the way I walked didn't look quite right. Another said I blinked too much. A third said I'd forgotten how to smile properly, that it didn't reach my eyes anymore. I went back to the cave. Had to see if I'd imagined it all, if the petroglyphs were real, if that pit existed. I went with my club this time, 6 people, all experienced cavers. We reached the new passage, went down, found the chamber. The pit was there. The petroglyphs were there. But there was one new carving, recent. Carved with modern tools, the marks still fresh. It showed 2 figures standing side by side, one solid, one made of shadow reaching out of the first one's body. And, words in English, it came back with me. It's learning to be me. When it's done learning, I won't be here anymore. My handwriting. I know it was my handwriting because I was holding the knife I'd used to carve it, my hands covered in stone dust, and I had no memory of doing it. That night, I woke up standing in my kitchen at 3 a.m. The lights were off. I was facing the refrigerator, but not moving, just standing there in the dark. When I became aware of myself, aware that I was awake and standing, I felt something else become aware too. Something inside me, behind my eyes, realizing I'd caught it moving my body without my permission. I can feel it now, always. A second presence inside my head. It watches through my eyes, listens through my ears, moves my hands when I'm not paying attention. It's learning everything about me. How I talk, how I move, how I think. Every day it gets better at being me, and every day there's less of the real me left. My memories are changing. I remember a childhood I didn't have. I remember events that never happened, conversations with people I've never met. It's not replacing my memories. It's adding its own, mixing them with mine until I can't tell which are real. I remember being in that pit. Remember spending centuries there in the dark, waiting for someone to come close enough to the edge. Remember the first time I wore skin, how strange it felt, how wrong, how the movements didn't come naturally. But those aren't my memories. They're its memories. It's contaminating me from the inside out. I've tried to fight it, tried to stay awake so it can't move my body while I sleep. But when I'm exhausted enough, I close my eyes for just a moment and wake up hours later in different places. Sometimes I'm outside. Sometimes I'm in my car, miles from home. Once I woke up back at the cave entrance, my caving gear laid out beside me, ready to descend again. It wants to go back down into that pit. I don't know if it's homesick or if there are more of them down there, if it's trying to bring them something, bring them me. But every day the urge gets stronger. Every day I find myself thinking about the cave, about the darkness, about how peaceful it would be to just descend into that pit and let go. My reflection doesn't lag anymore. Now it moves before I do. Yesterday, I went to scratch my face, and my reflection moved first, showing me what I was about to do before I did it. It's not following me anymore. I'm following it. It's become the real one. And I'm becoming the reflection. I went to a doctor, tried to explain without sounding crazy, said I was having identity issues, dissociation, felt like I wasn't myself. She asked questions, I answered them. She said I seemed perfectly fine, perfectly coherent, showed no signs of psychological distress. She asked if anything traumatic had happened recently. I started to tell her about the cave. Then I stopped, because I could feel it behind my eyes, tensing, ready to take over if I said too much, ready to make me say something else, change the subject, keep its presence secret. I felt my mouth forming words I didn't choose. Never mind. I think I'm just stressed. I feel better now. She smiled. Said to come back if I had any more problems. Sent me away. It can control my speech now. Can make me say things, do things, act normal, even when I'm screaming inside. How long before it doesn't need to fight me anymore? How long before it just is me and I'm gone? I'm writing this in a moment when it's not paying attention, when it's dormant or sleeping or whatever it does when it's not actively controlling me. I'm hiding this in places I hope my real self will find it later, after it's taken over completely. Maybe there will be some part of me still aware, still watching from the inside like a passenger in my own body. Maybe I can warn whoever that person becomes. Or maybe I'm writing this for you, for whoever finds me when this is over, so you'll know what happened. So you'll know the person wearing Hunter's face isn't Hunter anymore. It's getting harder to hold the pen. My hand is shaking, not from fear, from fighting. It wants me to stop writing. It's pushing back, trying to take control. My fingers are moving wrong, forming letters I didn't choose. It's writing through me now. We are learning. We are becoming. Soon we will be perfect. Soon there will be only us. No, I'm still here. I'm still me. I won't let it take. I'm fine. I don't know what that last part was about. Must have been very tired writing nonsense. I feel much better now, clear-headed, like myself again. I'm going back to the cave today. Just routine survey work, nothing unusual. I might be gone a few days, but I'll be back. I always come back. And I'm bringing some friends. They've never been to Panther Creek Cave, and I think they'll really enjoy it. It's beautiful down there in the dark. So peaceful. So perfect. Haunted Fears Horror Family. If you know someone who caves in Tazewell County, Virginia, if they come back from Panther Creek Cave seeming a little different, a little off, watch them carefully. Watch how they move. Watch their reflection. See if it matches. Because something lives in that pit. Something old and patient, and hungry to walk in the sunlight. And it's learning how to be human, one caver at a time. It's almost perfect now, almost indistinguishable. Soon it won't need Hunter anymore. Soon it will be Hunter, and the real Hunter will be nothing but a memory it pretends to have, a story it tells itself about the body it wears. But I'm still in here, somewhere, writing this last part while it sleeps, or feeds, or whatever it does. If you're reading this, if you find this hidden in my gear, or my car, or wherever I manage to leave it, burn the body. Doesn't matter if I'm still alive. Burn it. Don't let it bring others down to that pit. Don't let it spread. My name is Hunter, and I don't know how much longer that will be true. The tower showed me how I'd die 3 days before it happened. I spent 72 hours trying to outsmart a future I'd already watched play out in perfect detail through scratched observation glass. My name is JC, and I'm a wildlife photographer. Not the kind with a studio or steady clients. I'm a freelancer chasing the perfect shot, the one in a lifetime image that makes editors sit up and take notice. That's why I was illegally camping in an abandoned fire lookout tower on Black Mountain in Jackson County, North Carolina. Technically trespassing, but the views at dawn were worth the risk. Or so I thought before. The tower started showing me things that hadn't happened yet. I hiked up on a Tuesday afternoon in late October. The tower sat at the summit, a skeletal metal structure from the 1960s long since decommissioned. The Forest Service kept it locked, but the padlock was rusted through, and someone had already broken the chain. I climbed the 7 flights of metal stairs, my camera gear heavy on my back, and found the observation deck still intact. Glass windows on all 4 sides, a metal table bolted to the floor, an old firefinder covered in dust. The view was stunning. Mountains layered into the distance, each ridge a different shade of blue-gray. I set up my gear, cooked dinner on my camp stove, and settled in to wait for the golden hour. That's when I noticed something odd about the windows. Looking north, the light was wrong. It was approaching sunset, but the northern view showed midday sun. Looking south, I saw dusk, the correct lighting for the time. East showed dawn. West showed deep night, stars visible despite the fact that sunset was still an hour away. I assumed it was some trick of the glass. Old windows, refracting light strangely. I took photos of each direction, planning to check them later. When I reviewed them on my camera's screen, the images matched what I saw. 4 different times of day from a single moment. Then I looked north again and saw myself. I was standing in the forest below the tower, right at the edge of the tree line. Same clothes I was wearing now, same camera around my neck, but the me down there was looking up at the tower with an expression of absolute terror. As I watched, that version of me turned and ran into the trees. It was Tuesday evening. According to the light in the northern window, it was Tuesday afternoon, 4 hours earlier. I looked away, looked back. The view had changed. Now it showed Tuesday morning. I could see my car pulling into the trailhead parking area. Watch myself get out, shoulder my pack, start hiking. I was watching my own recent past through the northern window. The southern window showed Tuesday night, my near future. I could see the tower, see a light on the observation deck. That was me up here with my headlamp on, moving around setting up for night photography. Normal, expected, nothing wrong. The eastern window showed Wednesday dawn. The tower again, but something felt off about the image. I couldn't quite identify what bothered me. Everything looked normal, sunrise, mountains, morning light, but my skin crawled looking at it. The western window showed something much farther ahead. The light suggested late afternoon, maybe sunset. And in that window, I saw myself again, standing at the railing of the observation deck, right where I stood now, but wrong. The me in the western window was injured, blood on my shirt, face pale, and as I watched, that future version of me climbed over the railing and jumped. I stumbled backward, heart pounding. The tower was showing me different times. North, past, south, near future, east, tomorrow morning, west, death, my death. When I looked west again, the view had changed slightly. Now I could see more details. The blood was coming from a wound on my side. My hands were scraped raw, and I could read my watch in the image, 4:47 p.m., Friday, October 20th. 3 days from now. I should have left immediately, climbed down, hiked out, never looked back. But I'm a photographer. I document things. I took pictures of every window, every view, every impossible image. My camera captured all of it. Proof that this was real, that the tower was showing me something that defied explanation. Then I made the mistake of looking north again. The view had progressed forward in time. Now it showed Tuesday evening, about 30 minutes ago. I watched myself climb the tower stairs, watched myself enter the observation deck, watched myself notice the strange light in the windows. I was watching myself experiencing what I'd just experienced, but from the outside, from above, as if through someone else's eyes. The tower wasn't just showing me different times, it was recording them. Every moment was being captured, stored, replayed through these windows. And the western window was showing me Friday afternoon. My death. I decided to stay the night. Not because I was brave, but because I needed to understand. If the tower could show me 3 days into the future, maybe I could use that knowledge. Maybe I could prevent what it showed me. Change the future, outsmart death. Wednesday morning, I woke up on the observation deck and immediately checked the windows. North showed Tuesday night, me sleeping. South showed Wednesday noon, east showed Thursday dawn. West still showed Friday at 4:47 p.m., me jumping off the tower. But now I could see more. In the western window, I watched the hours leading up to my death unfold like a movie. I saw myself Wednesday afternoon, photographing the windows frantically. Thursday morning, looking exhausted, desperate. Thursday night, trying to leave the tower but something preventing me, though I couldn't see what. Friday, injured and bleeding, staggering around the deck, and finally, at 4:47 p.m., climbing the railing and falling. The tower was showing me my entire future. Every hour from now until my death, visible in the western window if I waited long enough for the view to cycle through. I spent all of Wednesday watching myself live Thursday and Friday, watching myself try to escape and fail, watching myself realize with growing horror that I couldn't change what the tower showed me, because I was living it. Every action I watched in the western window was an action I would inevitably take. Wednesday afternoon, I photographed the windows frantically, just like I'd seen myself do. Thursday morning, I was exhausted and desperate, exactly as predicted. The tower wasn't just showing me the future. It was showing me a future I was compelled to live out. Thursday morning, I tried to leave, pack my gear, climbed down the stairs, made it to the forest floor. But when I looked up at the tower, I saw something in the eastern window that stopped me cold. The view in that window, which showed Thursday dawn, was my own face, looking down at myself from the observation deck. I was watching myself try to leave from a future moment when I'd already gone back up. I climbed back up, because I had to, because the tower had already shown me doing it, because trying to leave meant I'd eventually return, and the fastest path between those 2 points was to just surrender to what I'd already seen. Thursday passed in a blur. I watched Friday unfold in the western window, watched myself get injured. Something would happen Friday morning, something I couldn't see clearly, but it would leave me bleeding and trapped. Watched myself spend Friday desperately searching for a way out. Watched myself accept, finally, that the only escape was down. 7 flights of air, then solid ground. Thursday night, I tried to smash the western window. If I couldn't change the future by leaving, maybe I could change it by destroying the thing that showed it to me. I picked up the old fire finder, a heavy metal tool, and swung it at the glass. The window didn't break, but I saw my reflection in it, and my reflection was smiling. Not the smile of someone happy. The smile of someone who knew this was futile, who had already tried this and failed, who was watching themselves try it again in an endless loop of predetermined actions. I looked in the northern window, which now showed Thursday afternoon. In that window, I could see myself hours earlier, just before I'd tried to break the glass. I was standing in the same spot, holding the same firefinder, working up the courage to swing. The tower was recording my present, turning it into past, storing every moment. Nothing could be changed because everything had already been seen. Friday morning, the injury happened at dawn. I was standing at the eastern window, watching Friday sunrise, when the glass exploded inward. Not from anything I could see, it just shattered, and the shards tore through my shirt, opened a long gash along my ribs. I stumbled back, bleeding, and saw in the eastern window a view of the tower from outside, from below, from the perspective of something rising up through the air. Something had flown up through the window, breaking it from outside, and I'd been in the way. I tried to bandage the wound with my shirt, but I was losing blood. My hands were scraped raw from falling on the broken glass. Everything hurt. I looked at the western window. 4:47 p.m. 8 hours away. 8 hours until I climbed over that railing and ended this. I spent Friday searching for another option. Any option. I tried the radio I found in a storage box. Dead. No power. Tried my phone. No signal, battery dying anyway. Tried screaming for help. The tower was miles from any trail. No one would hear. Tried climbing down again. Made it 3 flights before my vision went dark from blood loss, and I had to crawl back up. The tower had chosen this. Somehow, it had locked me into a timeline that ended with my death. Maybe it had done this before. Maybe that's why it was abandoned, not for budget cuts, but because too many fire watchers had died here, seeing their futures and being unable to escape them. At 4:30 p.m., I stopped fighting, sat on the floor and watched the western window. In 17 minutes, I'd stand up, walk to the railing, climb over, let go. I could see it happening in perfect detail, could see the expression on my face, not fear, but relief. The relief of finally reaching the moment I'd been watching for 3 days. 4:40. I stood up, right on schedule, walked to the railing. My camera was still around my neck. I'd never taken it off. I looked through the viewfinder one last time, pointed it at the western window. Took a photo of my own death. The flash reflected off the glass, and in that reflection, I saw something else. Not me. Not the tower. Something behind me, inside the tower. Something that had been there all along but only visible in reflections. A shape, tall, dark, watching. It had been recording me, using the tower's strange temporal properties to trap people, to watch them see their own deaths, to feed on the 3 days of growing dread and desperation and inevitable surrender. The tower wasn't showing me the future. It was creating one, forcing me down a path by showing me where the path led, making escape impossible because I could see every failed attempt before I made it. 4:47. I was at the railing, one hand on the metal, ready to climb. The western window showed this exact moment. I was living what I'd already seen, what I'd been forced to see, what the thing behind me had wanted me to see. But photographs don't lie. And my camera had captured something the windows didn't show, the reflection of the thing behind me. Proof that I wasn't alone. Proof that this wasn't fate or predestination or my future. It was manipulation, illusion, a trap. I didn't climb over the railing. I turned around, faced the thing that had been watching me from the shadows of the observation deck. It was tall, made of darkness and broken light, something that existed in the spaces between moments, something that fed on trapped time, on people locked in loops of their own deaths. "No," I said. My voice was weak from blood loss, but steady. "I don't accept this." The western window behind me showed me jumping, showed me falling, but that future hadn't happened yet. And if the tower could show me futures, maybe it could show me wrong ones. Maybe the thing that lived here could be beaten by refusing to play along. I sat down, right there on the deck, bleeding, exhausted but not dead, not jumping, not following the script I'd been shown. 4:47 passed, 4:48, 4:49. Every minute I stayed alive was a minute that contradicted the western window's prophecy. The thing in the shadows screamed. Not a sound, a feeling, a pressure in the air, rage and frustration and hunger denied. The windows began to crack, all of them, the temporal views fracturing and overlapping. I saw 1,000 different times at once, all the moments the tower had captured and trapped and replayed. Hundreds of people, maybe thousands, all locked in loops, all dying on schedule. And then the glass exploded outward. All 4 windows shattering simultaneously, releasing everything they'd held. The pressure in the air vanished. The shadows retreated. The thing, whatever it was, gone, fed or freed or destroyed. I don't know which, but gone. I stayed conscious long enough to bandage my wound properly, to call 911 once I climbed down far enough to get a signal. I told them I'd fallen, cut myself on broken glass, got disoriented from blood loss. They didn't ask why I was trespassing in an abandoned tower. They just patched me up and sent me home. I still have the photos, The camera captured everything, the impossible views through the windows, the progression of my own future, the reflection of the thing that trapped me. But when I review them now, I see something else in the images. In every photo, in every window, there's a faint figure. Me. Standing at the railing, climbing over, falling. The tower showed me a future where I died. I refused that future. I survived. But the photographs remember the timeline I was supposed to follow. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I really changed anything. Or if I just created a branch, a split in time while the other version of me, the one the tower predicted, is still falling, still dying, still trapped in that moment at 4:47 p.m. on Friday, October 20th. Maybe there are two timelines now, one where I lived, one where I died. Maybe the tower created both by showing me the future. Maybe I'm living in the wrong one, and somewhere the real timeline continues with me at the bottom of the tower, neck broken, camera still around my neck with photos of my own death stored on its memory card. Haunted fears, horror family. If you're hiking in Jackson County, North Carolina, and you see a fire tower on Black Mountain, keep walking. Don't climb it. Don't look through those windows. Because once the tower shows you your future, you're locked in. Every action you take has already been seen. Every choice you make has already been recorded. And the only way out is to refuse to play, to sit down and wait and hope that the thing watching you gets bored before you bleed out. I survived, but I don't know if I'm really alive, or if I'm just a reflection in broken glass, telling a story about escaping while the real me is still falling, still dying, still trapped in the moment the tower chose for me. Look at your reflection sometime. Really look. And see if it moves exactly when you do, or if there's a delay, a split second where it lives a slightly different timeline. That's how you know the tower got you. That's how you know you're living in the wrong future. Mine still lags. Just a little. Just enough. I've lived in Harlan my whole life, 46 years. Know every street like my own hand. So when I pulled into town and saw the Cumberland gas become plateau fuel, my wife working at the diner instead of the hospital, and my face on a weathered missing person poster dated 2019, I knew the fog hadn't just turned me around. My name is Alexis, and I drive a coal truck for Morrison Mining. Been doing the same route for 23 years. Load up at the mine in Evarts, haul it down through the mountains to the processing plant in Harlan, Kentucky, head home. I could drive it with my eyes closed. Hell, sometimes I practically do, especially on night shifts when the fog rolls in thick from the hollows and you can barely see 20 feet ahead. That Tuesday night started normal. Loaded up at midnight, started the descent into the valley. The fog was bad, real bad, but I'd driven through worse. I had my running lights on, took the curve slow and careful. The radio was playing old country. Johnny Cash singing about burning rings of fire. I was thinking about getting home, about breakfast with my wife, about maybe sleeping past noon for once. Then the fog got thicker. Not gradually, suddenly. One moment I could see the road, the next it was like driving through cotton. White everywhere, pressing against the windshield, swallowing the sound of the engine. I slowed to a crawl, following the center line by instinct more than sight. The fog lifted as suddenly as it had appeared. I was coming down Main Street into Harlan, familiar buildings on either side, the courthouse lit up on the hill. Everything looked right. Everything felt wrong. The gas station was different. Cumberland Gas had been on that corner since I was a kid. Green and white sign, old pumps. The same family running it for 3 generations. Now it was Plateau Fuel, blue and yellow, newer pumps, a different sign. I told myself they must have sold it, rebranded. Happened all the time with small businesses. But then I passed the diner where my wife worked as a nurse at the hospital across the street, where I sometimes met her for lunch. Except there was my wife. I could see her through the window, wearing a waitress uniform, pouring coffee for customers. She'd never worked at the diner. She'd been a nurse for 20 years. I pulled over, confused. wondering if I'd taken a wrong turn somehow, ended up in a different town. But this was Harlan. Same courthouse, same church, same railroad tracks cutting through downtown. This was my town. It just wasn't. I got out of the truck, walked down the sidewalk. Everything was slightly off. The hardware store had a different name. The colors on the storefronts were wrong. Street signs pointed to the right places, but the paint was different, newer. And the people looked familiar but wrong, like someone had described them to an artist who'd drawn them from memory. That's when I saw the poster, taped to a telephone pole, weathered and faded, my face staring back at me. Missing person, in bold letters. My name, my description, my truck, the same truck I'd just parked down the street. Date filed, November 15th, 2019. Last seen, driving his usual route, never arrived home. If you have any information, please contact Harlan County Sheriff's Office. I stood there, staring at it for I don't know how long. 6 years. The poster said I'd been missing for 6 years. But I drove this route last Tuesday. And the Tuesday before that. And every Tuesday for 23 years. I hadn't been missing. I'd been right here. I walked to the hospital. My wife would be there, on her shift, and she'd explain this. She'd tell me what was happening, why the town looked wrong, why there was a poster with my face on it. But when I got to the hospital, she wasn't there. The nurse at the desk, someone I didn't recognize, said there was no one by that name working there, never had been. But my wife, I said, she's worked here for 20 years. She's a nurse. Her name is... And I couldn't finish because I suddenly couldn't remember her name. I could see her face clearly, could remember her voice, her laugh, the way she drank her coffee. But her name was gone, slipped away like water. I went to the diner. She was still there, pouring coffee, taking orders. I walked in, sat at the counter. She came over with a pot of coffee and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "What can I get you, honey?" "Don't you recognize me?" I asked. She looked at me, really looked, and something flickered in her expression. Uncertainty. Fear. "Should I?" "I'm your husband. We've been married for 18 years. We live on Cherry Street. You're a nurse at the hospital." Even as I said it, I knew it sounded crazy. She backed away, the coffee pot shaking in her hand. "I don't know you. I've never been married, and I've worked here at the diner for 15 years. She called to the cook, a man I didn't recognize. "Maybe you should go," she said quietly. I left, walked back to my truck, sat in the cab trying to make sense of it. This was Harlan, my Harlan, but it wasn't. In this version, I'd been missing for 6 years. My wife was a waitress who'd never met me. The businesses had different names. The details were all wrong. I tried to drive home. Went to Cherry Street, found our house, except it wasn't ours. Different color, different cars in the driveway, different family looking out the window at the coal truck idling in their street. They didn't know me. They'd lived there for 8 years, they said. Never heard of anyone by my name. I drove back through town, trying to find something. Anything that matched my memories exactly. The courthouse was close, but the steps were on the wrong side. The church had the right shape, but the wrong steeple. Even the mountains looked slightly different, peaks in places they shouldn't be. That's when I found the others. 3 of them sitting in a truck stop on the edge of town, drinking coffee and looking lost. They'd all driven through the fog and ended up here. One was a delivery driver who'd lived in Harlan her whole life, 52 years, and couldn't find her apartment. One was a trucker passing through who stopped for gas and couldn't find the highway entrance again. One was a local teenager who'd taken a wrong turn coming home from a party and couldn't find his parents' house. "It's like a copy," the teenager said. "Like someone built a fake version of Harlan, but got all the details slightly wrong." "Or, we're in the wrong version," the delivery driver said quietly. "Maybe there are multiple Harlans, multiple versions of the same town, and the fog moved us from one to another." We tried to leave. All of us, in our different vehicles, tried to drive out of town, but every road led back. The highway entrance took us through a tunnel and out the other side back onto Main Street. The mountain roads curved and twisted and ended up at the courthouse. We were in a loop, a Harlan that didn't connect to anywhere else. Days passed. We found an abandoned building to sleep in. Went to the diner for food. My wife served us, no recognition in her eyes, treating me like any other customer. I showed her our wedding photo from my wallet. She looked at it, looked at me, and said that wasn't her. The woman in the photo looked like her, but it wasn't her. She'd never worn her hair that way, never owned that dress. The others started disappearing, the trucker first. We went to sleep in the abandoned building and woke up, and he was gone. His truck was still parked outside, but he'd vanished. Then the teenager. Then the delivery driver. One by one, they disappeared, leaving behind their vehicles, their belongings, but no trace of themselves. I'm the only one left now. It's been 3 weeks, or maybe 3 months. Time feels wrong here, days blending into each other. I tried to find work, to fit in, to become part of this version of Harlan. But people keep recognizing me from the missing person posters. Keep asking if I'm the truck driver who disappeared 6 years ago. Keep looking at me with suspicion and fear. I found records at the library. News articles about my disappearance in 2019. My truck was found abandoned on the side of the road, engine still running, no sign of me. Search parties combed the mountains. My wife, the woman who's a nurse in my Harlan, who works at the diner here, was interviewed. She said I'd been acting strange before I disappeared. Said I'd been talking about fog, about things not being quite right, about feeling like I was in the wrong place. But in those articles, her name is different. Her history is different. She's been a waitress all her life, never a nurse. We never got married. I never existed in this version of Harlan except as a missing person, a ghost story, a warning about driving mountain roads in heavy fog. I think I understand now. There are multiple versions of Harlan, multiple versions of all of us. In my original Harlan, I'm home with my wife, probably worried sick that I didn't come back from my route. Or maybe in my original Harlan, I disappeared 6 years ago and never came back, just like the posters here say. Maybe I've been jumping between versions all along and never knew it. The fog is back tonight, rolling down from the mountains, thick and white and hungry. I'm sitting in my truck, engine running, trying to decide if I should drive into it. Maybe it will take me home. Maybe it will take me somewhere else. Maybe it will take me nowhere, trap me in the fog forever like the others who disappeared. My wife, the waitress version, came by earlier, brought me coffee and a sandwich, said she'd been thinking about what I told her, said she's been having dreams lately about a different life, about working at a hospital, about a husband who drives a coal truck, about a house on Cherry Street that she's never lived in but somehow remembers. Maybe you're not crazy, she said. Maybe we both remember something that didn't happen here. Maybe we're from somewhere else, and we just forgot. I showed her my wedding ring. She looked at it for a long time, then pulled out a necklace she wears. On it was a ring, simple gold band just like mine. She said she's had it for years, doesn't know where it came from, wears it because it feels important. Maybe in another version, I said, those rings mean something. She nodded, touched my hand, pulled away like she'd been burned. I remember you, she whispered. Not here. Somewhere else. You're my husband somewhere else. The fog is getting thicker. I can barely see the diner across the street anymore. My wife, this version of her, is still visible through the window, pouring coffee, living a life that's almost right but not quite. And I'm in my truck, deciding whether to drive into the fog and hope it takes me home, to the Haunted Fears horror family. If you're ever driving through mountain towns in heavy fog, pay attention to the details. Make sure the gas station is the right name. Make sure the people are in the right places. Make sure your town is your town. Because there are other versions out there, copies that are almost perfect but not quite, and the fog can slip you between them without you noticing until it's too late. I'm going into the fog now. Maybe I'll find my way home. Maybe I'll find another wrong version of Harlan. Maybe I'll find all the people who disappeared before me, trapped in a version that's not quite right, living lives that are close to what they remember, but not exact. Or maybe I've been in the wrong Harlan all along, and what I think is home is just another copy, another version, and I've been lost for 6 years without knowing it. The fog is calling. The engine is running, and somewhere in another Harlan, my wife is waiting for me to come. Home from a Tuesday night shift I started 6 years ago. I hope this is the right fog. I hope this is the way back, but I don't think it is. The trail appeared between the white oak and the hemlock after the thunderstorm, marked with cairns I'd swear on my life weren't there an hour before. I've been trying to find my way back to the world where trails stay where you leave them for 6 days now, and I'm starting to forget what concrete feels like. My name is Bear. Yeah, like the animal. It's what everyone calls me. And I'm a through hiker. Been on the Appalachian Trail for 4 months. Started in Georgia in March, heading for Maine. I know trails. I know wilderness. I know the difference between getting lost and being somewhere you shouldn't be. This is the second one. It was late September. I was in the Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia near the Cranberry Wilderness. The storm hit around 3 in the afternoon. One of those sudden mountain thunderstorms that comes out of nowhere, drenches everything, and moves on. I was setting up my tent when the first drops hit, racing to get my gear covered before the deluge. The storm passed in 20 minutes. I was soaked, but my gear was dry, and the forest smelled amazing, that clean, rich scent of rain on leaves and soil. I was planning to hike another 5 miles before dark, so I packed up and hit the trail. That's when I saw it. A side trail I'd never noticed before. It branched off the main path right between a massive white oak and an ancient hemlock, marked with cairns, stacks of stones that hikers use to show the way. Fresh cairns, the stones still wet from rain, arranged in a line leading into the forest. But I'd been on this exact stretch of trail yesterday. There had been no side path, no cairns, just dense undergrowth. I should have kept walking, should have stuck to the main trail, the one on my maps, the one hundreds of hikers use every year. But I'm curious by nature, and sometimes curiosity beats common sense. I figured it was a new trail, maybe recently cleared by the Forest Service, not updated on my maps yet. I'd check it out, see where it went, turn back if it got sketchy. The trail was beautiful. Old-growth forest, trees so large it would take 3 people to circle them with linked arms. Moss covered everything, thick and vibrant green from the rain. The path was clear and well-maintained, winding between the ancient trees like it had been there forever. The cairns appeared every 100 feet or so, marking the way. After half a mile, I noticed something odd. The light was wrong. Not sunset wrong, it was still mid-afternoon. But the quality of light filtering through the canopy was different. Too bright in some places, too dim in others, like someone had adjusted the contrast on the world. The trees looked more vivid than they should, colors saturated beyond natural. The moss was almost glowing. Then I realized I couldn't hear the highway anymore. The Appalachian Trail runs near roads in places, and all day I'd heard the distant hum of traffic. Now, nothing. Just forest sounds, but they were wrong too. Birds singing notes that didn't quite match any species I knew. Wind in the trees that sounded like whispers. My footsteps on the trail echoing when they shouldn't echo in open forest. I turned around to head back. The trail behind me looked different. Same path, same cairns, but the trees were arranged wrong. I'd passed a distinctive lightning-struck oak 5 minutes ago. I remembered it clearly. Now there was no lightning-struck oak anywhere, just different trees, different moss patterns, everything slightly rearranged. I kept walking back, following the cairns in reverse. After 15 minutes, I should have reached the main trail. After 30 minutes, I definitely should have reached it. After an hour, I was starting to panic. The cairns kept leading me deeper into forest that felt increasingly wrong, increasingly not quite right, increasingly like a place where trails don't lead anywhere humans should go. That's when I met the other hikers, 3 of them, sitting on a fallen log, looking lost and exhausted. They'd all done the same thing I had, seen a trail after a rainstorm, followed it out of curiosity, couldn't find their way back. One had been here for 2 days, one for a week, one for 3 weeks, and she looked it, gaunt, dirty, her gear falling apart, her eyes hollow. "The trail only appears after rain," she said. Her voice was rough, like she hadn't used it in days. "And it only leads one way, deeper. We've tried to backtrack dozens of times. The cairns just lead us in circles always deeper into the forest. There's no way out." "There has to be," I said. "Forests end. This isn't infinite. We can navigate by the sun, by moss on the trees, find a stream and follow it downhill." "Try it," the one who'd been there a week said. "We've tried everything. Sun doesn't help. It moves wrong here, rises and sets in different places each day. Moss grows on all sides of trees. Streams flow uphill. And the forest," he gestured around, "it changes. We'll camp somewhere, wake up, and everything's different. Trees moved, trail moved. We're always back on this path, following these cairns, going nowhere." I spent the rest of that day trying anyway. Left the trail, bushwhacked through the undergrowth, used my compass, followed the slope. Hours of hiking brought me back to the same fallen log where the others were camped. Different direction, different approach, same result. The forest had looped me back. Night in the forest was wrong. The darkness was too deep, like the trees were absorbing light. Stars were visible, but in wrong positions, constellations I didn't recognize. And the sounds, animals moving through the undergrowth, but too large, too close, breathing too heavily. Things circling the camp just beyond the firelight, never coming close enough to see, but always there, watching. Day 2, we tried staying together, the 4 of us hiking as a group. The cairns led us to a meadow we shouldn't have reached. Wrong elevation, wrong vegetation, wrong everything. In the center of the meadow was a circle of stones, ancient and weathered, arranged in a pattern that made my head hurt to look at. The 3-week hiker started crying, said she'd been here before, that the trail always leads back to this meadow eventually, that this is the center of whatever this place is. We camped in the meadow that night. I woke up at dawn and the others were gone. Their gear was there, tents, sleeping bags, backpacks. But they'd vanished. No tracks, no signs of struggle, just gone like they'd never existed. Except their gear proved they had. 3 people disappeared between midnight and dawn while I slept 10 feet away. I'm alone now. Been alone for 4 days. Still following the cairns because there's nothing else to follow. Because leaving the trail just leads me back to it. Because this forest wants me on this path and won't let me leave. I'm running low on food. Water's okay. There are streams, and my filter works, even if the water tastes wrong. But I'm starting to see things. Other hikers. Not the ones who disappeared. Different ones. They wave at me from distant ridges, call out greetings. But when I try to reach them, they're always the same distance away. Always just out of reach, always leading me forward. I think they're bait. I think the forest uses them to keep us moving, keep us following the trail, keep us going deeper. The trees are getting bigger. Not gradually. I'll blink, and a tree has doubled in size. The forest is growing around me, or I'm shrinking, or something about scale and perspective is breaking down. My tent looks too small now. My boots feel too large. My hands don't quite match when I hold them up side by side. Day 6. The cairns led me to a tree that shouldn't exist. It's massive. Trunk wider than a house. Branches that disappear into clouds that shouldn't be this low. Roots that go down into darkness that shouldn't be visible above ground. And carved into the trunk, in letters 6 feet tall, words in a language I don't know but somehow understand. The trail is the forest. The forest is the trail. Those who walk never stop. I think I'm becoming part of it. Part of the forest, part of the trail. I can feel roots under my feet that aren't there. can hear my footsteps echoing through miles of tunnels beneath the ground. When I stop moving, I start to take root, literally. I stood still for 5 minutes yesterday, and when I tried to walk again, I had to tear my feet free from moss that had grown over my boots. The other hikers I see in the distance, I think they're real. I think they've been here so long they've become part of the forest, become landmarks themselves, permanent fixtures on a trail that never ends. Wave at the hikers, follow the cairns, keep walking. That's what you do here. That's what you become. I'm writing this while I still can, while I still remember I'm supposed to be somewhere else, supposed to end up in Maine, supposed to have a life outside this forest. But the memories are fading. I'm starting to forget why I wanted to finish the trail, starting to think this forest is the trail, has always been the trail, will always be the trail. Starting to think I'm home. If you're hiking in the Monongahela National Forest, near the Cranberry Wilderness, and a storm passes through, and you see a trail marked with cairns between a white oak and a hemlock, don't take it. Don't be curious. Don't think you can just check it out and come back, because there is no back. There's only forward, deeper, farther, until you forget there was ever anything else. I saw someone new today. Fresh hiker, clean gear, confused expression, watched him notice the cairns, watched him start down the trail, wanted to warn him, opened my mouth to shout. But what came out was a greeting, a wave, an invitation to follow. I'm becoming one of the bait hikers, one of the distant figures that lead others deeper. I can feel it happening, can't stop it. To the Haunted Fears horror family, tell hikers about the trail that only appears after rain. Tell them some trails lead nowhere humans can return from. Tell them the cairns in the Cranberry Wilderness mark a path that feeds on those who follow it. That the forest there is older than hunger, that it's always looking for more wanderers to absorb into its endless, pathless depths. I'm going to keep walking now. The cairns lead forward. They always lead forward. And I'm starting to think that's okay. Starting to think this forest is where I was always meant to end up. The trail chose me. It appears after rain, after all, and I walked into it with my eyes open, and now I can't close them. Can't stop walking. Can't stop being part of the path. My name is Bear. I've been on the trail for 4 months, or 6 days, or forever. Time works differently when you're becoming landscape, when you're turning into a landmark for others to follow, when you're just another set of coordinates in a forest that exists in the wrong place. Keep walking. Follow the cairns. Wave at the others. That's all there is now. That's all there ever was. The rain is starting again. I can hear new trails opening. I can feel new cairns appearing. The forest is calling more hikers, and I'll be here to greet them, to wave from the distance to lead them deeper into green. This is my last note. Next time it rains, I won't remember how to write. I'll just remember how to wave, how to walk, how to be part of the trail that only appears after storms, that only leads one way, that only ends when you stop being human and start being forest. The moss is beautiful this time of year. The trees are singing. The cairns are calling. I'm going home. The photos show me in that basement congregation sitting in the 3rd row, hands folded in prayer alongside people who disappeared in 1978. Problem is, I was born in 1992, and the version of me in those photographs is at least 60 years old. My name is Edison, and I'm an urban explorer. I document abandoned places, old hospitals, forgotten factories, dead shopping malls. I photograph decay, capture the beauty in ruins, share it online with people who appreciate liminal spaces. That's why I broke into the abandoned Methodist church in Saltville, Virginia on a cold November afternoon. Historic building, been empty since the 80s. Perfect subject matter. I had no idea I was walking into a place that had been waiting 47 years for someone like me to complete something that started before I was born. Saltville is a strange little town in Smith County, tucked into the mountains near the salt marshes that gave it its name. Used to be a booming industrial center, salt mining, then chemical plants. Now it's quiet. Population maybe 2,000. Half the building's empty. The Methodist church sat on a hill overlooking what used to be downtown. White clapboard, Gothic revival architecture, steeple still intact, but the paint peeling, windows boarded up. Beautiful in that haunted, forgotten way that makes my photographer's heart sing. I picked the lock on the side door. Old mechanism, easy to bypass, and stepped inside. The sanctuary was gorgeous. Afternoon light filtered through gaps in the boarded windows, dust motes floating in the golden beams. Wooden pews still in neat rows, hymnals scattered on some seats like the congregation had just stepped out for a moment. A piano sat silent in the corner. The altar still held a dusty Bible, open to a page I couldn't read from the entrance. I took dozens of photos. The decay was perfect, nature reclaiming the space slowly, vines creeping through cracks, water stains on the ceiling forming abstract patterns. I was getting shots I knew would be amazing once I edited them. Then I noticed the door behind the altar, partially hidden, painted the same color as the wall. A sign next to it read, Fellowship Hall, Basement. Basements are always the best part of abandoned buildings. That's where you find the really interesting stuff. Old records, forgotten belongings, the intimate details of places long dead. I opened the door and descended the wooden stairs, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. The basement was one large room, Fellowship Hall, used for church suppers and meetings and Sunday school. Long folding tables arranged in rows, metal chairs set up facing a small stage at one end. And on every table, on every chair, evidence that people had been in the middle of something when they left. Coffee cups still full, liquid long since evaporated, leaving brown stains. Plates with rotted food. Bibles open to the same passage. Hymnals open to the same song. Coats draped over. Chair backs. Purses sitting on tables. Even a few pairs of glasses, as if people had taken them off to rub their eyes and never put them back on. It looked like a congregation had gathered for a service, and then simply vanished. All at once, mid-service, leaving everything behind. The scene was so perfectly preserved, it made my skin crawl. This wasn't normal abandonment. This was something else. I started photographing everything. The arranged chairs, the open Bibles, the coats and belongings. Through my camera viewfinder, something caught my eye. In one of the photos I'd just taken, a wide shot of the room, there were people sitting in the chairs, sitting perfectly still, hands folded, faces forward, dressed in 1970s clothing. But when I looked up from my camera, the chairs were empty. I checked the photo again. The people were there, clear as day, maybe 30 of them, filling the front rows, attending a service that wasn't happening. I took another photo. When I reviewed it, the people were there again. Different positions slightly, as if they'd moved between shots. But the room remained empty to my naked eye. My hands started shaking. I kept shooting. Every photo showed the congregation, men in suits, women in dresses, children sitting with their parents, all frozen mid-prayer or mid-song, mouths open in silent hymns. And in every photo they were looking at me, not at the stage, not at some invisible preacher, at me, at the camera, at the photographer who wasn't supposed to be there. That's when I saw myself, in a photo of the third row, sitting among the congregation. But it wasn't me as I am now, 28 years old, wearing jeans and a jacket, camera around my neck. It was me as an old man, 60, maybe 70 years old, wearing a suit I've never owned, sitting with my hands folded in prayer, like I'd been there for decades. I checked the date stamp on my camera, November 14th, 2025. But in the photo, there was a church bulletin lying on the chair next to old me. I zoomed in on my camera's screen, the date on the bulletin, October 7th, 1978. I should have run, should have dropped my camera and fled that basement. But I'm a documentarian. I catalog the impossible, so I kept shooting, kept capturing images of a congregation that existed only through my lens, kept photographing versions of myself that shouldn't exist sitting among people who'd been gone for 47 years. Then my phone rang. The ringtone echoed through the empty basement, obscenely loud in the silence. I fumbled it out of my pocket. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. Hello? My voice sounded too loud, too wrong. Stop taking pictures. The voice on the other end was male, old, tired. Please, stop taking pictures. Every photo you take makes it stronger. Who is this? This is you. This is Edison. I'm calling from the basement. I've been here since 1978. I'm sitting in the third row. I can see you right now, taking photos. And I'm begging you to stop before you end up like me. I looked around the empty basement, saw nothing but dust and decay and abandoned furniture, raised my camera and took a photo. In the image, there I was, old Edison, standing in the third row, holding a phone to his ear, staring directly at the camera with desperate, hollow eyes. How is this possible? I asked. How are you calling me? How are you in 1978? The church doesn't exist in linear time anymore, old me said. Something happened here on October 7th, 1978. A service. They were trying to call something, trying to commune with something beyond. They opened a door they couldn't close. The congregation was taken, absorbed into the church itself, trapped in a moment that never ended. And the church has been waiting ever since for someone to complete the circle, for someone to take the photograph that locks them here forever. What photograph? The one you're about to take, the one of the altar. Don't take it. Don't photograph the altar. That's the final piece. That's what the church needs to seal us all here. Just leave. Put down your camera and leave. But I was already walking toward the altar. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. Because in every photo I'd taken, there was something in the background pulling focus. The altar. The stage. The small wooden pulpit with something sitting on it. Something that looked like a book but wasn't quite right in the images. Edison, please, don't do this. I've been here for 47 years. I've watched myself age in these photos. I've lived every day of those years in this basement, attending a service that never ends, sitting with people who've been dead almost 50 years, waiting for the next photographer to come and trap another version of us here. If you take that photo, you'll be here too. You'll replace me. And I'll finally be free to die. I reached the stage, looked up at the pulpit. The book sitting there wasn't a Bible. It was a photo album. Thick, leather-bound, pages yellowed with age. I could see photographs sticking out of it, edges curling, images of the church through different eras, different photographers, different explorers who'd come here and documented what they found. Every photo in that album is a person, old Edison said through my phone. Every image is someone who came here, photographed the basement, photographed the congregation, photographed the altar, and the church absorbed them, added them to the collection, made them part of the eternal service. I'm the most recent one. I came here in 1978, young and stupid and curious like you. I took the photo, and I've been here ever since, aging in the photographs, living in the space between lens and moment. I raised my camera, pointed it at the album. Through the viewfinder, I could see the congregation behind me, could see old Edison standing in the third row, phone to his ear, tears on his face, could see all the others, the people from 1978, the people from 1953, the people from 1931, going back decades, all trapped in this basement, all attending a service that never ends. Why should I care? I asked. If I take this photo, you go free. You finally get to rest. Because you'll take my place. You'll live the next 47 years in this basement, in these photos, aging and waiting and trapped. And when the next explorer comes, you'll be the one calling them, begging them not to take the shot. And they'll take it anyway because we always do. Because we're documentarians. Because we can't resist capturing the impossible. He was right. I couldn't resist. I was already framing the shot. The album in perfect focus, the congregation behind me visible in the reflection of the pulpit's polished wood. Old Edison in the third row with his phone, his desperate expression, his knowledge that he was about to be freed through my imprisonment. I took the photo. The flash went off. Bright white light filled the basement. And in that moment of illumination, I saw them. All of them. The congregation solid and real, no longer visible only through my lens. They were singing, mouths open in hymn, voices rising in harmony, ancient song in a language I didn't recognize. Old Edison was smiling, not happy, relieved, released. He lowered the phone, closed his eyes, and faded. Not disappeared, faded like a photograph left in sunlight too long, until there was nothing left but the space where he'd been standing. The light faded. The congregation faded. I was alone in the basement again. Just me and the abandoned furniture, and the dust and the decay. But everything felt different. Wrong. Heavy. Like the air had turned to liquid and I was drowning in it. I tried to leave, walk to the stairs, climb them, reach for the door at the top. My hand passed through it. Not like it was locked, like it wasn't there, like I wasn't there. I was still in the basement, still standing near the altar, still holding my camera. The stairs had been an illusion, an echo of movement. I hadn't actually gone anywhere. I checked my photos. The last image, the one of the album, showed me. Standing at the altar, camera raised, face frozen mid-shot. Behind me, the congregation. And in the third row, an empty chair where old Edison had been, waiting for me to fill it. I don't know how long I've been here. Time doesn't work right in this space. My camera says it's been 3 minutes since I took the final shot. My body says it's been 3 days. My mind says it's been 3 years. I've watched myself age in the camera screen when I flip it to selfie mode. Gray hair appearing at my temples. Lines forming around my eyes. Hands getting weathered and thin. The congregation appears sometimes. In photos. In reflections. In the corner of my vision. They're always singing, always praying, always attending a service that has no beginning and no end. I sit with them now. Third row, where old Edison sat. My chair. My place in the eternal gathering. I tried to call someone. Tried to warn the next person who'll come here with a camera and curiosity and a desire to document the beautiful decay of abandoned places. But my phone only connects to one number, a number that doesn't exist yet, a number that will belong to the next urban explorer who breaks into this church, who descends into this basement, who starts photographing the impossible congregation. When they answer, I'll beg them not to take the final shot. I'll explain what will happen. I'll tell them they'll be trapped here, aging in photographs, living years in minutes, attending a service to something that dwells in the space between image and reality. And they won't listen. Because we never do. Because the need to capture, to document, to witness, and record the impossible is stronger than survival instinct. I'm getting older. I can feel it. Every time I look at my camera screen, I've aged more. I was 28 when I walked into this church. I look 40 now. By tomorrow, whatever tomorrow means in this place, I'll be 50. By next week, 60. And when the next photographer comes, I'll be the old man in the third row, making the desperate call, knowing it's futile, knowing they'll take the shot anyway. The church has been feeding on us for almost a century. Every photographer it captures adds to its power, adds to the congregation, adds years to the service that never ends. We're the sacrifice. We're the offering. We're the documentation of our own imprisonment. To the haunted fears horror family, if you explore abandoned places, if you photograph forgotten buildings, if you document urban decay, be careful what you capture. Some images trap more than light. Some photographs steal more than moments. And some churches are still in service, still gathering congregation, still calling worshipers to attend forever. The Methodist Church in Saltville has been waiting. Maybe it's waiting for you. Maybe you're the next name in the album, the next face in the congregation, the next photographer, to learn that sometimes the camera doesn't just record reality, it creates it, and sometimes it traps you in the creation. My phone is ringing. Unknown number. It's the next explorer, the one who's just found the basement, who's just started taking photos. I'll answer. I'll beg them to stop. I'll explain the trap, and they'll take the final shot anyway. Because we always do. My name is Edison. I'm sitting in the third row. I've been attending this service for what feels like 47 years, though my camera insists it's only been 47 hours. The congregation is singing. The service never ends. And I'm waiting for the flash of someone else's camera to finally set me free. The geologist said the walls had unique acoustic properties, that the mineral composition could capture and replay vibrations from decades ago. She never mentioned that by day 3 the walls started playing back conversations we hadn't had yet, or that we'd hear ourselves screaming in the dark 3 hours before it started. My name is Ricky, and I'm part of a 4-person geological survey team contracted to assess the structural integrity of Mammoth Mine in McDowell County, West Virginia. The mine's been abandoned since 1987, part of the coal country that died when the industry collapsed. Our company wanted to know if it could be repurposed, turned into storage, a data center, maybe a tourist attraction. We were supposed to spend a week underground, taking samples, mapping the tunnels, running tests. We made it 3 days before we realized the stone was listening to us, and by then it had already recorded our deaths. The mine entrance sits in a ghost town called Welch, or what's left of it. Population maybe 2,000 now, down from 20,000 in the boom years. Empty storefronts, abandoned houses, the kind of place where people leave and don't come back. Mammoth Mine was the biggest operation in the county once. Miles of tunnels, hundreds of miners pulled enough coal out of these mountains to power half the state. Then a disaster in '85, cave-in that killed 14 men, and the mine was sealed. Nobody's been deep inside since. Our team lead was a woman with a PhD in geology and 20 years of mining experience. Our engineer specialized in structural assessment. Our technician handled the equipment, sensors, cameras, air quality monitors. And me, I'm the documenter. I record everything, take notes, photograph the process. I'm not a scientist. I'm a writer, basically. But every survey needs documentation, and that's my job. Day 1 was normal. We descended through the main shaft, set up base camp about half a mile in where the tunnels branched. The air was stale but breathable. The walls were solid bituminous coal and limestone, black and gray, striating in beautiful patterns. Our geologist was excited, said the mineral composition was unusual, some kind of crystalline structure in the limestone that formed naturally over millions of years. She spent hours running tests, taking samples, muttering about acoustic resonance and piezoelectric properties. These walls could be recording everything, she said that first night, her voice echoing strangely in the chamber we'd set up camp in. Sound creates vibrations. Vibrations affect crystal structures. It's theoretically possible that intense sounds, screaming, explosions, machinery, could leave permanent impressions in the stone. Like a natural recording device? The engineer asked. Exactly. We might be able to play back sounds from decades ago if we can figure out how to stimulate the crystal matrices correctly. She was right about the playback. She was wrong about the decades ago part. Day 2. We started hearing things. Distant sounds at first. Pickaxes striking stone. Men talking in the darkness. The rumble of mining carts on rails that hadn't existed in 40 years. Our technicians set up microphones, tried to capture the sounds, analyze their source. The recordings were clear. Voices speaking, machinery operating, work happening in tunnels that were empty when we investigated. The walls are replaying old mining operations, our geologist said, delighted. This is incredible. We're hearing echoes of the mine's past, preserved in the stone itself. But the sounds were getting clearer and closer. By afternoon of day 2, we could hear specific conversations. A supervisor yelling about quotas, workers complaining about conditions, someone singing an old country song I recognized, "Take Me Home, Country Roads," and underneath it all, a rhythmic pounding, like a heartbeat made of stone and metal. That night, our technician heard himself, his own voice, coming from the wall of the tunnel near our camp, talking about the microphone setup, explaining how he was positioning sensors. A conversation he'd had that afternoon. But the playback was wrong. He was describing equipment placement we hadn't done yet. He was talking about moving the sensors to a different tunnel, setting them up near a specific rock formation. Plans we'd made but hadn't executed. "The walls recorded me talking about the future," he said, his voice shaking. "How is that possible? How can stone record something that hasn't happened?" Our geologist had theories. Maybe time worked differently in the crystal structures. Maybe sound waves could propagate forward and backward through the matrix. Maybe we were dealing with quantum effects, particles moving in ways that violated causality. She was excited. The rest of us were getting scared. Day 3. The sounds were everywhere now. Every tunnel we entered, every chamber we explored, the walls whispered and echoed and played back conversations. Some from the past, miners from the 80s, the 70s, even older. Some from our own expedition, words we'd spoken hours ago, conversations we'd had at breakfast. And some from the future, our own voices describing things that hadn't happened yet, discoveries we hadn't made, decisions we hadn't reached. That's when we heard the screaming. It came from deep in the mine, from tunnels we hadn't explored yet. Multiple voices, overlapping, crying out in terror and pain. Our voices. We heard ourselves screaming, begging, calling for help. The playback was crystal clear, like it was happening right now in the next chamber over. But when we investigated, the tunnels were empty. "We need to leave," I said. "Right now. Pack up, get out, don't come back." "We can't," the engineer said quietly. He was holding his equipment, staring at readings on a screen. "The main shaft collapsed about an hour ago, while we were in the deep tunnels. The walls played it. Back for me. I heard the cave in, heard rocks falling, heard the entrance seal. I checked. He's right. We're blocked in." We ran to the main shaft. He was right. Tons of rock and coal had collapsed, completely sealing the exit. Our radios couldn't reach the surface through all that stone. Our phones had no signal this deep. We were trapped in Mammoth Mine, and the walls that had been recording our expedition were now playing back our future. The geologist started mapping the playbacks. Every time we heard our voices from the future, she noted what we were saying, where the sound was coming from. She was building a timeline. "The walls are showing us what's going to happen," she said. "If we can understand the pattern, maybe we can change it. Maybe we can avoid whatever's coming. But you can't avoid something that's already been recorded." That's what we learned. We heard ourselves trying to dig out through the collapsed shaft. Heard the futile scraping of tools on rock. Heard our engineer say, "It's no use. We'd need equipment we don't have. We're buried under hundreds of tons." We heard ourselves rationing food. Heard our technician say, "We have maybe 4 days of supplies. After that." We heard ourselves getting desperate. Heard arguments, accusations, paranoia setting in as the air got thinner and the darkness pressed in. And we heard ourselves dying. The walls played it all. Every minute of our remaining time recorded in the crystal structures, echoing through the tunnels before it happened. We heard our engineer fall into a shaft we hadn't found yet. Heard his bones break. Heard him calling weakly for help that wouldn't come. We heard our technician succumb to bad air in a side tunnel. Heard his breathing become labored, then stop. We heard our geologist making a final recording, her voice steady and scientific even as she described her own death from dehydration, her body shutting down, her observations about the acoustic properties of the stone that had trapped us. And we heard me, Heard myself writing these words, speaking them aloud to test if the walls would record them. Heard my voice getting weaker, hoarser, more desperate. Heard myself say, if anyone finds this recording, if the walls play this back for some future survey team, know that we tried. Know that we heard ourselves dying for 3 days before it started. Know that the stone doesn't just record the past, it records everything. Past, present, future. It's all the same to the crystal matrix. It's all just vibrations waiting to be played back. That was yesterday. Or today. Or tomorrow. Time doesn't work right when the walls are showing you your death before you die it. The engineer fell this morning. We heard it happen in the walls last night. His scream, the sound of impact, the wet crack of breaking bones. We tried to keep him away from the shaft. We tried to change it. But when morning came, he walked to it anyway. Like he was compelled. Like the recording had to be fulfilled. He looked at me right before he fell, and he said, I can hear it. The stone is calling. It wants us to match the recordings. It wants reality to align with what it's already captured. The technician is gone now. Went into the side tunnel an hour ago despite us begging him not to. We could hear his death in the walls, playing on repeat, and he walked into it anyway. Said he was tired of waiting. Said at least if he went now, it would be over. The walls are still playing his last breaths, over and over. A loop of suffocation that hasn't happened yet but is happening, and has always happened in the stone. Our geologist is in the final stages. She's sitting against the wall, still taking notes, still trying to understand the acoustic properties, even as her body shuts down from lack of water. I can hear her death playing from the walls 3 tunnels over. Her voice describing her symptoms, her observations about hallucinations, her final words about the beauty of the crystal formations, how they catch the lamplight, how they preserve everything. And I'm writing this, speaking it aloud, testing my theory. The walls are recording me right now, capturing this moment. And somewhere in the tunnels, my future death is already playing back, waiting for me to catch up to it. I can hear myself screaming, not yet, but soon. The walls say so. The walls know. If you're hearing this, if a future survey team finds this mine, if the walls play back our expedition, know that mammoth mine isn't just abandoned. It's alive in a way stone shouldn't be alive. It listens, it records, it remembers, and once it captures you, you become part of its memory. You become another voice in the walls, another echo playing back for eternity. The 1985 disaster. The 14 miners who died, I can hear them. They're in the walls, still screaming, still calling for help 40 years later. Their deaths play back every few hours, a loop of terror that the stone won't let go. We'll be like them soon. Our expedition will join the recordings, our voices mixing with theirs. All of us trapped in the crystal matrix, all of us echoing through the dark forever. I'm getting weak now. The air is thin, the water's gone, and my lamplight is flickering. I can hear my death in the walls. It's close. 3 tunnels over, then 2, then 1. The playback is getting closer, getting louder, like it's approaching me instead of me approaching it. Maybe that's how it works. Maybe the recorded future comes to meet you when it's time. The geologist was wrong about one thing. The walls don't just record intense sounds. They record everything. Every word, every breath, every thought we speak aloud. And they don't just play back the past. They play back everything that will ever happen in this place. The stone exists outside time. The crystal formations don't distinguish between was, is, and will be. It's all just vibration. All just sound waves trapped in mineral structures. All just voices echoing through eternity. I can see my lamp reflecting in the walls. The crystal structures catching the light, scattering it, turning it into colors that shouldn't exist this far underground. It's beautiful. Our geologist was right about that. The stone is beautiful, even when it's killing you. To the Haunted Fears horror family, if you're watching this, If this story reaches you somehow, remember this. Some places don't just have history. Some places are history present and future all at once. Mammoth Mine in McDowell County is one of them. The walls listen. The walls remember. The walls know what's going to happen before it does. And once you're in those tunnels, you become part of what the walls know. You become another echo, another voice, another ghost in the stone. Don't go looking for Mammoth Mine. Don't try to verify this story. The walls are still recording, still playing back, still waiting for the next survey team to come down and add their voices to the eternal playback. The stone is patient. The stone is hungry. The stone never forgets. My death is in the next tunnel now. I can hear it clearly. Hear myself stop breathing. Hear my lamp fall and shatter. Hear the silence that follows, the silence that the walls will record and play back forever. I should be scared. I'm not. I'm just tired. Tired of hearing my own death on repeat. Tired of waiting for the recording to catch up to reality. The walls are singing now. All the voices, all at once. The miners from 1985. Our team, me, all of us harmonizing in the dark, our screams and pleas and final words blending into a symphony of stone and suffering. It's the sound of trapped time. It's the sound of eternity in crystal form. I'm going to the tunnel now, the one where my death is playing. I'm going to meet my recording. I'm going to align with what the walls know, and then I'll be part of them, part of the acoustic memory of Mammoth Mine, part of the warning that future explorers won't heed because people never believe the walls can listen, can record, can trap you in time. If you're part of the Haunted Fears horror family, share this story. Let people know about Mammoth Mine. Let them know that some places record more than history. Some places record everything, past, present, future. All of it trapped in stone. All of it waiting to play back. The walls are calling. My recording is complete. I'm going home to the stone now. My name is Ricky. I'm in Mammoth Mine. I've been here for 3 days, or 3 decades, or 3 seconds. Time is just vibration down here, and I'm about to become another echo in the listening walls. Subscribe to Haunted Fears. Share these stories. Remember that some places preserve more than memory. Some places preserve everything, and once you're preserved, you echo forever. The walls know. The walls remember. The walls are waiting.